Hello, everyone. All right, so Facebook and YouTubers, make sure that you say hello on your way in because I don't get to see you when you join until you comment. What's up, Susan Russo? Good to see you over here on TikTok. Hey, Tina Noel, nice to see you as well. Hello, Diva T. Poison, good to see you. Coolest Mimi. What? Oh, here. I got you. Here, sugar butt. Here. There you go. You got it. Good girl. Good morning. Good morning, Amy. Hello, Sharon. Hello, River Snow. What? Don't unplug it, sis. Hold on, y'all. Mila needs help this morning. Here. No, not that one. This one. Here you go. Tutu's working. There you go. Okay? Now you got it. All right. Sorry about that. Had to take care of the little one. So welcome, Donna. Good morning, everybody. I missed a bunch of people, so haven't seen you guys in a minute. Hey, Amanda, it has been a minute. Life been lifing. I know how that works. Good morning, Carmen. Hey, just here for the dad jokes. Allie, good to see you. Let's see, who else am I missing so far? Because I had to go over there. Mom with goals, good to see you this morning. Hey, Siberio. Nice to see you as well. So I am waiting on Miss Cheryl to join, and then I will bring her right on up. Hey, Linda, good to see you as well. Hey, Candy, nice to see you. Hey, Cam, all the things. So are you on desktop? Where do you go to request? You are talking to the wrong person because I do not know the answer to that question. Hey, Farah. Hey, Donaski. Let me see if I can just invite Cheryl and see how that works. So I sent it. Let me know if you see it. What's up, Pamela P. Jones? Good to see you. Oh, thank you. Hey, Chef Ryan. Appreciate you guys. Cajun Lady, nice to see you as well. Candy Kiss, appreciate that. Yeah, thank you, Cody. Appreciate that. Hey, Uka, good to see you. What's up, One New York Queen? Lisa, good to see you. Angel Snow. Who else have I missed? Yeah. Lots of stuff happening this morning. Cheryl, I don't know the answer to the question, girl. I tried to help. I sent it to you. What's up, Tootie? Good to see you. Donna Ski, nice to see you as well. Hey, Carolyn on Facebook, nice to see you. Good morning, Carrie. Lots to talk about today. And while Cheryl figures out her logistics because she's on desktop, hey, Receive Grace. What's up, everybody? Hey, Dax. So much is going on. Thanks, Donna Williams. I appreciate that. Thanks, Tootie, for the puppy. I know I have to look crazy on Facebook and YouTube when I turn my head or when I do certain things, but on TikTok, they give you gifts with coins. And so like they might be a puppy licking your face, or it might be a bear that gives you a hug or whatever. So when y'all see me on Facebook and YouTube looking absolutely crazy, but telling somebody thank you, it is a gift that I am reacting to. How about that? So good morning, OG Uncle. Hey, Pie Slice. Good to see everybody. Olive, I don't know what you mean. Thank you for the gum. Candy Kiss, appreciate you. Hey, Lisa, what's up, BA? Good to see you as well. Cheryl figured it out. Okay, so let me just go ahead and share a couple of things. So we are going to spend a good portion of our time in this top of the hour talking about 504s and IEPs and how to advocate for those, either for, your kids that have them, or children that you think might need them, and all those types of things, right? So, here's my opinion, Mama Dukes, about Biden being on The View. I wish he would take I would wish respectfully. Hey, Thomas Griffin, I respectfully wish that Joe Biden would not be getting into the media right now, giving interviews with BBC, going on to The View. It's just not helpful for what we need to be doing to move forward. So I believe that he accomplished great things during his administration, but right now I need him to sit down for just a moment. Right. Hey, Amy, what's up, Carla? Okay, so let me just say this. So Cheryl Russell is a disability advocate who is also neurodivergent, autistic, and I'll let her tell you more things about her. But when we have, when we have conversations that talk about education, some of these proposed changes in the proposed budget, and different things like that, or if we're just talking about IEPs being neurodivergent, the challenges that can come with some of that, all of those things are, Cheryl always is able to kind of weigh in. Hey, Mary Shaw, with lots of really good information. And so, hey, Maddie, what's up, Stacy D in the place to be? Hey, Brandy. So she's going to join us today, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that kind of in depth. And so for those of you who maybe you already have children that are on IEPs, or maybe they have 504s, and you're seeing some of this talk around changes with funding in the proposed budget for special education programs, or differences in how that money would be distributed, and what might happen with the IDEA law and its funding and all those different types of things. This is a live that you're going to want to be, and you're going to want to listen to, right? So, hey, Macaroni in the house, what's up? Tell Sue I said hello. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure that I was on both Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok, is because TikTok lives, they don't stay up, but Facebook and YouTube do. Now, let me just say this. Facebook has started a new thing where lives get deleted after 30 days. So I would highly encourage you to subscribe to me on YouTube so that you still have access to all of that information. What's up, Chantel? Hey, Ayana. Good to see you. Hey, Ali Nicole. Good to see you as well. Hey, Joan. Listening because of the twins. Yep, I got you. So Cheryl is she has been a really great kind of like sounding board and resource for me, as we kind of navigate the spaces with my Bella and all of those different things. So, I think it's important that we know how to advocate for our students and for our kids that we believe might need IEPs or 504s, or maybe they already have them. And you're wondering, what questions to ask, or how to show up and what to do and all of that. And so that's why she's joining. I know she's still trying to figure out how to join via laptop. And Cheryl, I think maybe you have to go to there's like a studio, there's a live studio version. I don't know if you have to be on that from a desktop. What I would do is maybe Google it and see, because I don't know.
I just switched my phone and gave up, and I'll just do it from here.
Yeah, so that's just kind of my thing as well. Good morning, Candy Red. Hey, Linda Johnson. Yep, she's here. Well, she was trying to figure out, she joined via her phone, and she was trying to figure out how to do it from her desktop, and it was not cooperating with her. So I was just kind of, what's up, Janice Bird?
It's okay. I'll do it from here. It's not a big deal. I wanted my hands free in case I needed to quickly look up anything that's changed or whatever for anybody, or something specific, because IDEA, and I say IDEA, it's okay to say IDEA. You'll hear it wherever you go different. Some people spell out the acronym, some say it. But it's the same thing.
Gotcha.
But anyway, I was trying to
let me
keep my hands free in case I had to look anything up. And oh gosh, now my face is huge.
I'm trying to listen. I'm so sorry. I am trying to figure out how to do this.
I turned around. I was like, oh, there's my head. Anyway.
Okay. Well, we're getting there, aren't we? We are getting there. Jeez, oh, Pete, y'all. If you TikTok and Facebook are like, what are y'all doing? I'm trying to fix things on TikTok to where we get everybody on here and showing and all the things. So give me 1 second. And is it going to let me do what I need to do over here? Maybe, maybe not. There we go. Boom. Now, I think we are all okay, right? We're all okay. What's up, Pie Slice? Her hair looks amazing. I know. She's always got that vibrant. Yeah. Always vibrant covers, never anything boring. Meanwhile, I'm over here with the straight black, jet black, blue black. It's one of those. That's all that happens over here. So, okay. So here's what I'm going to ask you guys to do. So first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let Cheryl just kind of start sharing information with us. And then as you have questions, drop them in the chat for me if you're on Facebook and YouTube. If you are on TikTok, join the panel, or you can put them in the chat. And hopefully my mods and I can pin them and answer them and do all the things. So that's funny, Astrid. No worries. So, all right. So Cheryl, first, let me just say this. So I appreciate you for not just doing this, but every time we are having conversation, and so like there are certain things that I'm very well versed in because I'm doing them all the time. And so I'm very comfortable with the language or whatever. And then this is an area that I have a nice awareness of, right? And there are things that I'm venturing into now that have never had to be in before. I've never had to, I've shared this with you guys before. I've never had to know what stemming is. I've never, all the different things, because when I was growing up, constant movement, constant humming, constant spinning around in circles, all those types of things was just, if you don't sit your ass down somewhere, you know what I mean? Like that's what it was when I was growing up. You were just the disruptive kid that just had too much energy.
Wanted all the attention.
And wanted all the attention. Yes. And it's just, hey, Linda, good to see you. And so it's a new place that I'm diving into. And so want to see everybody's going, yes, it was. It was. And I think maybe that's a good place to start, right? I think maybe that's a good place to start is like, why do we see more children today that are getting IEPs, that are having 504s? Why do we hear about this increase in people being on the spectrum? What does it mean to be on the spectrum? Like all of those different things. So maybe that's a great place for you to start, and then we'll kind of build from there.
Yeah. So one of the main reasons, the largest reason, is because of the whole awareness. We had all these awareness campaigns, especially backed by people with disabilities themselves. As we had some of us slip through the cracks and get into research and science and, all these different areas, because of all the people who fought for disability education, we began receiving education. And as we received education, we were able to advocate for ourselves more, and there's more awareness and more people who have a better understanding. So more people are getting diagnosed and receiving what people don't like to call labels, but labels are opening doors for you. So that's the largest part of it. Also, the diagnostic criteria changing. Almost everything under the sun was done, research and applied to white boys for everything. Yeah. So obviously this looks different in a variety of people with different backgrounds, different races, different cultures, and different, obviously, genders, all of that. So there's still work to be done, as always.
Yeah.
But it's gotten better. So that's why we're seeing more diagnosis.
So let me ask you this, because so one of the things you mentioned, how things show up differently. And I think that that's something that a lot of people don't get, is that what looks like ADD and ADHD in a boy might look different in the way that it shows up in a girl or somebody that's non-binary, and all the different things. Like the way that we show up, they don't all have the same symptoms. And I don't even like to call them symptoms.
Not even just the way we show up, but also there's a difference between how we're treated to begin with, even when we don't have disabilities. So the expectations between certain genders and everything, and it just depends on where you are, even races, depending on where you are, we are treated differently. So that makes a difference there too. So if you're seeing a different way to begin with, it's hard to understand. I mean, it's just this big thing. There's several different factors.
Yeah.
Socially, most of the time, women tend to be more of the social ones. We are trying to be more organized, getting people together, tend to be considered more well-behaved because we tend to be more quiet and demure, and, but it's none of those things. That's the way that they live with. So girls just present differently oftentimes, but not always. It's oftentimes. So it took longer for them to recognize this in other people. Try to give examples. A lot of times girls with, say, ADHD will tend to daydream. They'll be in another world. They tend to talk a lot faster. Like you're going to hear me talking really fast sometimes. Tell me if I need to slow down.
I will not be the person that says slow down, because I talk a mile a minute as well.
You want me to talk faster. Exactly. So our brains tend to be 10 steps ahead and also spread all over 20 different things all at once. So when we're talking, we can easily lose track because we're ahead and all, over to the side over here instead of what we're supposed to be talking about and focused on. It's interesting when you watch a conversation between two people with ADHD or like two people who are autistic or both. Their socializing is so different than when you add somebody who may be more neurotypical into the equation. So I always love watching those conversations.
Yeah, I think.
So it's about awareness and understanding and changing of the diagnostic criteria.
So you used a word, and because I don't really know the the knowledge base that everybody's coming into this conversation with. So you use the word neurodivergent. Can you tell people kind of what that word means, just basically, and how it intersects with all of this?
So there's neurodivergent and then there's neurotypical. Neurodivergent is, well, let's start with neurotypical. Neurotypical is more I don't like using the word average because I don't think anybody's got an average brain. More typical, that's why we say neurotypical, of what you, as the basis of, I guess, where you start of what most people expectations would be as far as a typical working brain. Yeah. All the connections go into places where they would normally go. And it's the main basis of how most of our world is created. Classrooms, the workplace, everything, the grocery stores, you name it. It's based on that. And neurotypical covers different things. We're not talking just disabilities when it comes to cognitive, but physical disabilities. All of these are based on typical. Okay? And able-bodied, all of us. Able-bodied, do I need to explain that one?
Yeah, so we'll go to bodied after we do the neuro. So,
neurodivergent is just this huge umbrella term that covers any divergence of what's typical. So anything that is different, and there's lots of different diagnoses that would fall under this. Think of all the different mental health disabilities and challenges. Those cause a difference in how your brain works, from like PTSD to chronic anxiety to ADHD to being autistic. There's a variety. Yeah. And being chronically also disabled too can also have an effect on that and how your brain works because of the chronic register of pain.
So I want to add to that, because one of the things that people don't realize is that the intersectionality of trauma into our lives does impact us. What we know is that trauma impacts the way our brain fires our little neurons and the pathways that they go down, right? So when you think about, when you get this normal thing that triggers this part, right? It has a normal little pathway it goes down, right? And a lot of times when you've experienced traumatic experiences, you don't want to go down that normal pathway, but you do all the time. And so there's work. So we won't do it today, but I love the idea of neuroplasticity and kind of rewiring, for lack of a better word, how those little pathways work. One of the ways that, you do that is with EMDR and different stuff like that. But, I want you all to just try not to think about sticking yourself in a particular label, right? Because the label itself, for how you think about you, doesn't matter. But the label, so to speak, is what can open doors for you with certain support things and things that you get and that you need to be, to excel, to thrive in your environments, whether that's school, whether that's work, whether that's, whatever it is. So labels are
community.
Yes, that's true.
Finding your people. Finding people who relate and understand you and who you communicate with better. That label helps with that too.
Yeah, because I can tell a difference when I'm talking to people that my friend Dasan, he used to say this to me all the time, because I would be talking about something and I'd be super frustrated, and I mean frustrated. And he would say to me often, he would say, "Hey, so you do know that everybody's brain doesn't work like yours?" And I was like, "No, this is the only brain I have." I was so frustrated. That was my response. This is the only brain I have. I only know how it works. You know what I mean? And so for me, I'm just like, I don't understand why people don't get it. But it's also this awareness is also why like I'm starting to realize why I never felt like or still never feel like I fit like anywhere, like other people are having conversations. And typically, if I'm not leading the conversation, it feels awkward to me. It feels weird because it's not, you know what I mean? I don't know how to explain that. Or
I know what you mean. You don't
yep.
have to explain it to me. I know what you mean. And I'm sure many people, what I'm reading in the chat knows exactly what you mean too.
Yeah. And so that's the thing is it's really understanding and starting to pay attention. And I think we've been taught for a long time not to talk about these types of things and not to examine them, and definitely not to say, oh, well, I have disabilities, right? There's just this reaction to
like shame.
Yeah, there's shame, there's guilt, there's embarrassment. You know, when I think about, so Brene Brown, you all know that I love her, right? So she talks about these 4 major emotions that become our hindrance for connecting with each other. And that is guilt, embarrassment, shame, and humiliation, right? And if you think about it, the way that she talks about it is embarrassment is like when you're walking up a sidewalk and like you trip and you look around to see if anybody saw you, or you accidentally toot. Y'all know what I'm saying? Y'all know what I mean when I say toot. And you like are like hoping nobody heard you, right? So that's the embarrassment. But if you've ever had, you all know what it feels like to feel guilty about something. And you also know what it feels like to have someone humiliate you, right? And you know what it's like when you feel ashamed because you couldn't do something, you didn't do something, you know logically how to do something, but something inside you doesn't let you know that you are safe to do something. And so those 4 things are what oftentimes keep us silent and keep us separate. And so hopefully this is going to be one of many conversations where we can start to do that.
Yeah, no, you're right on, and that goes for a variety of disability. I mean, it's everybody fits under that. So now that we've gotten this awareness, so the awareness came on more along after all the fights for disability and education, because the awareness for these types of disabilities, when I say more like ADHD and autism, it's been more in the, I'd say in the last 20 years that we've seen more of a rise of this. Maybe even, you know, it's definitely been in my lifetime that I've seen more people talking about it, being more open, creating these communities, and where autistic people with ADHD and just all disabilities, just I keep mentioning this because that's my world, but it's all disabilities, coming out and being advocates together, creating their own communities and pushing for knowledge and research and education. And the big part is being there as adults for the children whose parents are raising them in this and needing supports and things. So being there for them. And these are great communities, especially when the parents take the time to respect and listen to these advocates and understand that they used to be kids too in those positions. Yep. So even though they might seem light years from their children at this point, they used to walk those shoes. And what you see in an adult is very different from what you see in a child. So I actually tell people, go look for the advocates out there who are doing the work, who work in the field, who understand. They're a wealth of knowledge. So that's one thing I would love people to take away. They're out there. They're all over social media, and they're available. They make themselves available. So that's one area. Did we want to move into IEP education?
Yeah, you were gonna touch on able-bodied.
Oh yes.
And then after we do, because we've done typical, like neurotypical, neurodivergent, and now we're gonna talk a little bit about able-bodied, and then we'll go into the IEPs.
So able-bodied is basically it's somebody who is not working with any type of disability. And it's funny because there are areas sometimes where people who are disabled are able-bodied, but we're not able-bodied as a whole. Able-bodied people do not have any type of disability that is chronic. That doesn't mean that they do not have acute disabilities that happen from being ill, getting a condition that they fight and get over. At that time, they are working with disability, but they become able-bodied again. So the difference is does not have long-term existing incurable disability.
Physical, yeah.
Does that explain it well?
Yep, physical disability.
Yes.
And so I want to touch on just a couple of comments. Facebook and YouTube, you guys are quiet so far, but TikTok is full of comments. Yeah, so if you know, I get that all the time. You don't look unwell. You don't look disabled. You don't look whatever. I get that all the time. And people just have no idea what happens when I turn the camera off. And what it feels like after that, or what I was doing right before I turned the camera on, right? And so, but people only look at that snapshot. But so one of the things that was put into the comments was someone put, I am nervous in this time that we are living in to get myself and my child diagnosed.
Okay. So first thing I tell everybody is you have to make that decision and weigh it out for yourself. That is not a decision where somebody can tell you straight up, yes or no, what's the right thing to do. My personal opinion is still get the diagnosis, because if in your gut, if you're looking and seeking diagnosis yourself, you usually know. Usually a diagnosis is had when it's coming from you. When it's coming from someone else, not always, but when you feel it, there's usually something going on. Not being labeled doesn't make that go away. Especially when you're looking at your child more than anything. Those doorways will not open if you don't have the labels. Mm-hmm. And yes, there's a lot of alarming things going on. People are fighting it everywhere. We've had history where things have been like this. I don't think that anything that's happening, even if it escalates, is going to stay. Right. And I think that like I said, we have people fighting it. We have a lot more disabled disability advocates out there also working on these things than we did in the past.
Yes.
I truly believe that these labels open doors in understanding, open doors in education, open doors in the medical world. Mm-hmm. I mean, you never stop fighting. You're always going to have to advocate fight. That is something I tell people straight up. It gets easier though. You learn it, you figure it out. The labels are part of what makes it easier.
So
because you got all those things still going on, and you're trying to figure out how to help your kid, but right now you're doing it grasping at straws because there's no labels.
And so to your point, so I've shared this before, but when I was in 2022, I was on the Stacey Abrams team, right? And it was by far the most diverse and inclusive environment I've ever been in. Ever. And I'm talking about from when we had all hands meetings, or if we had mandatory trainings and mandatory meetings, that we had several signers on our staff, because we had one guy who was deaf, who was hearing impaired, right? But we had 2 or 3 people that could do that. And anytime you saw, like if you saw her interview with Oprah, we had the same thing. Somebody was signing, right? It was a thing. So there's also, have you ever heard of this organization, New Disabled South?
No.
Oh, okay. So when you contact them, because they are incredible people, and I can say that they are because I know them personally. So the CEO of this organization is Dom Kelly, Domkelly. Dom Kelly was on the Abrams campaign. That's where I met Dom. That's where I met Khalees and good gosh. Casey Amon. It's where I met all of those individuals. And this nonprofit, it started right after the campaign, right? And Stacey helped get it started and all of that. But they are advocating for people that are disabled now in 14 states.
That's amazing.
Yep, it's a beautiful thing. And so it's everything from Ohio, Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, all the way over to Texas, right? And it's a really beautiful thing. One of the things that they talk about, are like disabled housing and how much we don't have that and all of those different things. But if nobody has heard of this organization, I personally know them. They are amazing people. And have lots of ways for you to kind of tap in there. But I wanted to hook you. I thought about Dom the other day and I meant to tell you, but I forgot. So
I got them on my list. I actually have a list of different organizations written down in case anybody needs those too.
I love that.
But that sounds amazing. I'll have to check them out. So if they spread past the South, are they going to change the name?
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know if they're going to spread past the South. I think that's why I think they were really focused because, okay, if we're being really frank, and this is just from my perspective, the North and the West seems to be a little bit more ahead when it comes to being inclusive and accommodating disabilities and the awareness of it. They are just ahead. The name Grammy is New Disabled South. And so I think that that's one of the reasons why when they started it, that's what they wanted to really focus on. They wanted their kind of set territory because those are the areas that really need to make the most gains and things like that. So I think that that's why they're kind of headed in that direction.
It's not a seam. You're correct. It's absolutely correct. So even as an IEP advocate, I have some groups where other IEP advocates that it's just for us, where we talk about different, like say if we have a client, that there's challenges in the school, it's new experience, because even though we're educated under IDEA, everybody's different. You get stumped sometimes and you have to figure out how to use those laws and statutes and regulations in a way that's going to help that specific need.
Yes.
So we get there and talk, and they're all over. They're everywhere. And I mean, we're talking north, west, east, south, everywhere. We are all talking together, and the South is greatly different. The things that we have to constantly fight for that should be given, just not there. And it's just, they're always like, why are you guys still having to work on that and everything? So it's not a seam, it's a definite. And so why some people still need advocates in those areas, it's not like here.
Yeah.
It's just not like here. There were way more advocates in the South in these groups than any other because it's more needed.
Yeah. And that's the thing. This is why when people say, it's not that anybody is bashing, right? But I think that we have to get to this place where we recognize our opportunities to grow and embrace them and not take them as, a negative or oh my God, well, you hate it here. No, it's not that. It's that if I want us to be everything that we can be, then this is part of that and understanding it. So yeah. So everybody is clear on like typical, neurotypical, neurodivergent, able-bodied versus disabled, and those types of wording. Everybody's good with that? Because I do want to head on and get into the IEP and 504 discussion. Everybody's good? Yeah? Okay. Everybody's saying yeah. All right.
Okay. So definitely let me know if anybody has any questions come up. First, I'm going to say I'm not a lawyer. I always say this even when I head into meetings, because I talk about sometimes laws and statutes and things that you can't do this and not talk about stuff like that. But I always want to make sure people don't think I'm pretending to be a lawyer. I am not a lawyer.
I always say I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I am giving neither medical or legal advice. I'm giving you none of that.
Yes. I'm what's called an IEP advocate. Okay. And my training isn't, so like you've got people who work in schools and they've got different types of positions, but mostly what you talk to more than anything is the teachers. My training is not like the teachers. Teachers have more specific training in the education side with the student. They know more things about, access points. If anybody's using them, they know what those are. Disability education, which they call special needs education in the public education. Okay. So they have more of that focus, where my focus is more on the end of the needs not being met in this school. Like if your child just is not having access to education at all is a problem, obviously. They don't seem to be growing in their education because whatever is that they're doing is not working. Have not been able to get supports or services that they may need or accommodations. That's where I step in. And so I know the IEP process and how to start those processes, and the 504, how to start those processes and how to maintain them. Mm-hmm. And I have been taught under IDEA. A lot of staff in public education When they're in school, some of them don't touch on IDEA at all as far as like studying it. They know about it. They know some basics, but they don't study it. Some will take specialized, like there are areas that have specialized classes that you can take in it. We don't have that in my area. It's not available here, but it is available in some areas. So some staff will know, and oftentimes they're trained by the existing staff. So when you get into positions, you're taught by your district how to follow that and the IEPs, and your training, a lot of it comes from there.
So when you say IDEA, can you share with people what that is?
So IDA is Individuals Disability Education Act. And I spell it out IDA. Some people say IDEA. But when I was trained, my professor always said IDEA, so it stuck in my head.
IDEA.
But I've heard people say it both ways. So it's the same thing. It's not two different things, so people don't get confused. IDEA and IDEA are both the same acronym. And it is literally this, I have it printed out in my other room. It's 2 huge booklets about this thick, about 4 inches thick, of all the statutes and laws under it. But it is available on the internet. I'm old school. Like Danny, I like to have paper too. So you can Google the laws under them very easily. You can look up IDEA if you're really, really bored and want to read statutes and laws. I will say, out of legalese, it is one of the more easy things to read, at least to me. So it's not, it's easy to come by. Before I dive right into, I have taken the basics of IDEA, and I have created little documents, available. The links are, if anybody's in Discord, the links are there to those documents. I make them available and public to anybody who wants them. They're one resource to help people with the process if they need something in writing to see or have on them. And it's about different aspects. I'm going to be making one soon too on the parts of an IEP, so they understand when they go in what an IEP looks like.
Yeah.
But there's all different things in there, from how to request screening for eligibility and determination, what that process looks like, the difference between an IEP and 504, break it down, what to do if they don't give you an IEP and you think your child needs one, what to do if they try to change your IEP, all these different types of things in there. So if you are not in Discord, which I highly recommend you join Danny's Discord.
Which is free, guys. Discord is free.
You want to tell them real quick how to do that?
Yeah. So listen, whether you're on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, if you're watching from those 3 platforms, when you go to my profile, right? And in Facebook, it's in the About section. I have a little link that's there. You click that URL, okay? And you're into my link tree. Once you get there, at the very top, there's all these icons where you can follow and connect with me. One of them looks like a little game controller, right? A little robot game controller. Hit that. That is the Discord. Now, you can copy and paste that link into another browser, click it yourself, whatever. And when you get into the Discord, there's a whole step-by-step verification process that you do. And there's different sides to the Discord. There's a side of Discord for folks that are not subscribers. Everything in there is completely free. My link tree is also in the Discord. Phantom has done a fantastic job of putting a lot of the material that I make available to everybody just in there for free. Cheryl's stuff is also in there because we want it to be a place where people can get free resources that help you become very well informed to get the things that you need, whether it's in your school system, whether it's through your legislator, whatever that is. So that's how you get into the Discord. Now, if you want access to the subscriber side of things, where we do documentary viewings, book club readings, all that different stuff, one of the last steps is to become a subscriber. And there's different levels of subscriptions. So that's the last step that's in there. But that's how you get into my, Phantom is amazing. He sets up all of my Discord, but that's how you get in there. And Cheryl has a ton of stuff in there for you.
It's listed as IEP. So if you're just on Discord, you go down the different channels, you'll see one that says IEP. You go in there, there's a document that has links to all of mine. And they're just Google Docs, so anybody can get access to them.
Yep.
If you don't do Discord or don't want to, or whatever the reason, you can message me and I can email you the links too. I just want to make sure everybody has access to this. So if you need it that way, I can do it that way. Just you have to give me time.
Yeah. And so what I would say is if you just don't want to do it, suck it up and do it anyway, because
that would be my preference.
yeah, because Cheryl's already providing everything for free, and it's not fair. I hate that word, but I mean, it's
Add
a little
extra
bit,
work on
yeah,
it.
it's to add somebody who's already giving you free stuff to take more time to make sure that you get free stuff. Okay. So having said that,
Thank
join
you.
Discord. You're
I
welcome.
put myself out there way
Hey,
too
Doug.
much. But anyway.
I know what that feels like.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So with the IEP process, the first thing you want to understand is the difference between IEPs and 504s. Okay. So the most basic way to understand this is that 504s are accommodations. And the way I explain that is there are things that are provided, either something you bring in that's for your child that you're providing that is being used in the classroom, or something being provided by the teacher in the classroom in their setting. So it's not going to require an extra staff member, an extra person, somebody else to do this for them or to provide this. It's accommodations like preferential seating, extra time on a test. There's so many things. It might be like a bouncy band on a desk for a kid that's fidgety. There's these bands that you can put on the legs of the desk where you can put your feet on them and you can bounce your feet without having to get up and move and leave the desk, but you get that movement and you're not a distraction to others. So things like those are accommodations.
Yeah.
IEPs come into play when the accommodations are not enough and the child needs some sort of services. Services could start off as something, I call it basic, like you're being pulled out to meet with the counselor to go over what they call the daily planner. So you're learning executive functioning skills and how to organize yourself. That's still service. Some will say, oh, we'll do that in a 504 plan. To me, anything that you want to make sure you keep and it's being provided by somebody else, you get that IEP. And I'll explain that. If somebody needs to do education and executive functioning, I would push for an IEP, not a 504. It could be that they need speech therapy. It could be that they need modifications to their education. And that's where they literally change the curriculum, the way they're working, the testing assessments. That's where you touch into the teachers having more education in this part. Modifications is something that has to be determined by the school in regards to the disability itself. But if you need modifications, you want an IEP. Physical therapy, there's a variety of different things.
Occupational therapy.
Counselor for mental health.
Yep.
So basically think of services, anything that is beyond what you would get as an accommodation. It's what it's going to provide somebody other than the teacher in that classroom or you.
So it makes perfect sense. And there's a couple of questions. So someone said, can your child still have an IEP at the collegiate level?
So no. So that's a bit much. What I recommend oftentimes is that in the transition in high school, when you're transitioning to college, you already have a meeting set towards the end of the year to switch into a 504. And the reason is because colleges do not provide services. They only provide accommodations. And some colleges will look at an IEP to create that. Some will request your 504 to create that. They don't create 504s. They don't create IEPs. They have what's called disability resource centers, and they come up with the accommodations that they can give you. And every college is very different what they'll work with and what they're good about. So it's going to take a lot of research. I highly recommend getting into social groups that are parents of college-bound students with disabilities. They're out there. And a lot of, there's people in there who have kids who are in college with disabilities, and we're talking variety of disabilities. They talk about what colleges are working and not working. Mm-hmm. So that would be one area. But you want to switch to a 504 if you can, unless the college will read an IEP, but that's something you got to find out ahead of time.
Yep.
That's why I just always say switch, because everywhere we'll look at a 504, because an IEP is a lot more in depth than a 504 plan.
Yes.
And colleges don't want to waste their time with what they don't want to read.
Yeah. So let me just tell you guys, and here's the difference. So the IEP is specific to the IDEA law, which is K through 12 education. The 504 is and is with regard to the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so your child's college may have looked at their IEP and said, yes, we can make these accommodations, but they're doing it through the 504 piece of it, and you're switching to a 504 when they're in college. And so that's what Cheryl is communicating to everybody.
And they don't even call it that. They just call it accommodating. Yeah.
Yep.
So they don't use those types of titles or anything.
Yep.
Most of them don't. Some
So-
might say that they've worked in both sectors. But yeah, you explained it perfectly. That's exactly what it is. So it's different sets of laws. IDEA is a federal law that covers all of K through 12. Actually, it's not even just K through 12. It starts at age 3.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
Love that.
So child fine laws is embedded in that, and we'll get into that some, but child fine starts at age 3 and goes through 21. So anyway, so IDAs cover that. And yes, even though it goes through 21, let me put that key point, because people are like, I thought you said it didn't cover college. 21-year-olds who are still in high school.
Yep.
So you have extended graduation, not 21-year-olds who are in college. IEPs stop once you graduate high school.
Yep.
Okay. So does that make sense?
Yep, it makes perfect sense. And so when we're saying they're going to college on an IEP, they're going to college with the accommodations that they had on their IEP that their college is willing to do. A college may or may not be willing to do that from an IEP, but they will do accommodations under the laws of the 504. And so you're going to just have to see what the colleges that you're looking to go to, or that your child is looking to go to see what they will and won't accommodate, and then make your choices from there.
Yeah, they might talk about IEPs and stuff because they know that's what the parents come in knowing, but legally they don't have to follow any of the IDA laws. They do not have to follow and create IEPs, just ADA.
And I think that's the big part. So the college is using the terminology because the parents are used to saying IEP, but the difference is huge from a legal standpoint and from an accountability and requirement standpoint, because IDEA, that law, the IDEA law, has specific things that schools have to do because of the funding that they get because of IDEA. Those colleges don't get that funding, so they don't have the same requirements and accountability attached to it. So hopefully that makes sense. Somebody said something. I've seen 2 things posted now by this individual, and I wanted to take a second to have it addressed because both of them bother my soul. And so one of the things that she said is that her son has ADHD. And so they're always blaming everything on his behavior and they neglect his intellect. And then she said that her 504 coordinator is not helpful and is actually even kind of discouraging. But then tells the district that everything is okay. And so I wanted to see how you would respond to that and what type of advice you would see your face from an advocate's perspective.
So this is one of the most common situations that I hear more than anything. So oftentimes what happens is a student doesn't end up getting an IEP until behavior is an issue. And that's only with the parents who have access and knowledge to what they can do. Mm-hmm. So they don't go through the system being labeled a behavior problem.
Right.
Their behavior is a communication that something isn't working for them. So that's first and foremost. So that would be part of the verbiage I would be using. The behavior my child is exhibiting is due to not having needs met. There's something not working for them. And I believe if we do better to accommodate them, this behavior will no longer be an issue. Yes. And that is the case. Almost, I'd say 98% of the time, if the student is getting their needs met in the school, what behavior,
Yes.
So that's part of it. So it's specific to each individual. Just like you've met one autistic, you've met one ADHD kid, you've met one ADHD kid, so sometimes it makes a difference in what they're doing. If this child is starting to have issues in education, like they're not being allowed to do advanced subjects because of the fact of they're focusing on the behavior, or they're failing some of their classes because of this, like maybe they're getting expelled or things like that, and they're missing class. These types of things are keeping them from education, and it sounds like they need more supports to do better in the classroom. So I would be putting in a letter request written for eligibility for an IEP. So an ADHD student, the first thing I think of is a brief exam is one of the things. So the first thing that everybody gets with eligibility is a psychoeducational evaluation. That's the number one that everyone gets. But what a lot of people don't know, and you don't get told, there's a variety of other evaluations out there that are specific to different disabilities. And the brief, don't ask me what brief stands for, but it's an acronym. But brief, like the word brief, it's an acronym. It is a specific type of evaluation for executive functioning. And I always recommend that one to be requested as part of the evaluation process for an IEP, especially if there's any ADHD, there's possibility of being autistic, or there's already diagnosis of either one of these things. So I would add those on top of it. If there's anything else going on, if you believe that there's other types of possible disabilities that haven't been found, like dyslexia, dysgraphia. So dyslexia is for reading disabilities, and that's also an umbrella term. It can affect you in many different ways when it comes to reading disabilities. There's dysgraphia, which is a writing disability. That's one I have to work with my child. And there's dyscalculia, that is math disability. And those are other types of learning disabilities that you may be looking at. So if and those disabilities are common with, you'll find them a lot with people who have ADHD or are autistic. So oftentimes they get overlooked because behavior stands out more.
Mm-hmm. Yep, 100%. So
what I would tell this person is, personally, I would sit down and think of, what are all the different ways that it's affecting them in school. I would start collecting data. I would start getting things that are written down that you can see. I would collect things from the teachers. I would put together this portfolio, and in writing, I would email and request a meeting for determination for an IEP.
And so,
I'll go in more detail how to do that later.
And one of the things that Cheryl is saying is so critical, because when she says in writing, that is the key to any advocacy at all. You want to get everything in writing. And so, like, for me, one of the first things what you just said in this chat, where I feel like, my son's everything is being blamed on my son's ADHD and his behavior, and his intellect is being neglected. I would say, hey, it feels like, and I know that this might not be your intention. Give them the benefit of the doubt, right? This might not be your intention, but the way that it feels for me is that this is a negative experience for us, and that our needs are being overlooked. And it's just that the start to everything of getting the conversations going, but everything is in writing, absolutely everything. And just to give you guys like an example. So it was, I want to say first grade, maybe first grade. Yes. First grade is when we first, like, Bella had her first run in, and I don't know what happened leading up to this moment. But all I know is that something happened in the classroom. Bella got super frustrated. And when Bella gets frustrated, she can't articulate it verbally very well. And she might make noises and grunt at you or whatever. And so this happened in first grade. And I'll never forget Anaya calling me. And I'm just going to be real honest. I cracked up laughing when she called me and told me this story. I understand that it's not in front of from an education perspective, but here's what happened. So after this happened in the classroom, they sent her to the vice principal's office, and they called home and they said, we don't know what to do with Bella. She knocked the stuff off the table in the vice principal's office, and she said, and she's growling at her. And
I would have laughed
too. When they said Bella was growling at her, I cracked up laughing. And you know what I mean? But what happened, what was birthed out of that moment was her first grade teacher is now her special education teacher. She transferred out, which is great, because once we got all the evaluation done and she got on an IEP, like her points like she increased like 25 points from one year to the next. Like she's just doing so much better. I mean, just completely incredible. And so this is the thing. Back in the day, I can tell you now, if I had ever knocked something off of a principal's desk and growled at someone, I would have got my ass whipped when I got home. You know what I mean? There would have been, because of the awareness that we have is not what we had back then. And so I think it's always it's important for us to recognize how much we have grown in our awareness and our acceptance. Even let me just say that our acceptance of the fact that we are all of our differences, not just the ones that you can see. Okay.
Right.
We always talk about like our differences in terms of our skin color and our genders and our this and our that, and all of it should be, everything should be accepted. That applies to the things that you can't see just as much as to the things that you can see. So I'm sharing so that if you are a parent or a grandparent and you are going through this process, both of our cats just walking all over our desks.
This is Inky.
Yeah. So, just to, hi, pretty kitty. But just to kind of say that you're not by yourself. There's no shame around it. It's like figuring it out. And I've shared this before and I will say it again. So because her first grade teacher became her special education teacher this year with her IEP, before the school year started this year, she went into Bella's new classroom. She picked the best seat for her, where she would be, the most focused and the least distracted, and all of those different things. When we went to do her IEP thing, there were, I want to say five, if not six people from the school that were on that call with us. Right. So you had everything from the school psychologist to the special education teacher to the occupational therapist to the person. You know what I mean? They were all there. And so one of the things that, and this is going to sound however it sounds, but I'm going to tell you something. When somebody, I know for a fact, this particular teacher has Bella's back like 1,000 times, and Bella loves her. So Teacher Appreciation Week, I appreciated the hell out of her. Like she got a basket, she got a bag with everything on her wish list and some extra, you know what I mean? But there's email communication. I don't know what it will be like, because I see some of you all saying what kind of people you have working with your kids. And I'm lucky that we have someone who's fantastic, because the email that I got 2 days ago, remember when I said that I got an email and I was concerned? The title of the email was Changes in Collaboration.
Oh.
Not problems or whatever, but it was because she was like, hey, have you all noticed anything? Because we're seeing, Bella's like a little bit more tired and a little bit more this. Luckily, we'd just been to the pediatrician. We knew her hemoglobin was low. And so we were able to communicate that and da-da-da. But do you understand that the subject of the email wasn't Bella's behavior or everything okay at home? Somebody in
it
the
was, but not in an alarming way. They
Right.
were mentioning they were noticing a difference in
Yep.
how she was behaving, but not in
in a negative. Yes. Like somebody in the comments just said that they were always being asked, is everything okay at home? Which is frustrating, right? It's a positive inquiry from the perspective of, hey, we are here to work, and collaboration automatically indicates we're here to work with you. And so I would be advocating, in one of the most powerful ways that you can do things like that is to say, hey, I have a friend, I have somebody that I know, and this is what their interaction is like. And, I would love for us to have that same type of interaction. You know what I mean? This is about building relationships, because these are the people that are involved with our kids. Yeah.
You want to build those relationships, and you don't want to be so close to them. It's kind of creepy, but you want to maintain those professional boundaries.
Absolutely.
Because I've seen there's some parents have taken it a bit far. Because it's their kid.
Yeah.
You'll be there all day with them. Or your grandchild, and whatever the case may be. Sometimes it's a foster parent who's doing this, but you want to make sure that you're creating relationships. One of the tips I give people that I used to do for teachers, we're all humans, and we recognize when people care about us and do things for us. And I don't mean like bribery. I mean, as humans, we notice when people recognize and appreciate our positions. I always give the teachers at the beginning of a year what I call a teacher survival kit, just to start the year off. And I get these like the little shoe Tupperware containers from the dollar store at that, I don't know how much they are now, but they're around $1. And I fill them things with like Tylenol, Tums, snacks like protein bars, Band-Aids, miniature sewing kits, things you might need in a classroom, deodorant, the little toothpick things to get stuff out from between your teeth. Survival kit.
Yes.
Things that you might need in your classroom and you might not think to have on you.
Yeah.
And I would give this to all the teachers with a note that says, looking forward to a wonderful year. And I would put a note in there, once you've gotten a chance to get settled in the classroom this year and you've gotten to know my kids some, let's set up a meeting. So that way I'm letting them know, I know you need time, you need to get settled. I'm creating that boundary, but also, hey, I'm over here. When you're ready, let me know. We need to talk about some of the things with my kid. And I want them to get an idea of my kid before they already have it, whatever the plans are in place, unless it's their first year. They already have plans in place, so they know that there's disabilities there. But I want them to form their own judgment of my kid before I give them one.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So that is one way to, start that relationship.
Yep. So, and one of the things that I want to mention, because, Cheryl, somebody in the chat earlier said, different abilities. And Cheryl and I had this conversation the other day, because I will often say differently abled, right? And one of the things that the disability community is really working on is the acceptance and removing the stigma of saying disabilities, right? Instead of differently abled, disabled, right? Also, because that word disabled is an access point. It's a label that accesses support and needs and things like that. Differently abled may not get you what you need. And so I wanted to share with everybody so that why we are specifically using that word and sticking with it is for that person. So Jedi MRQ had asked, there were two questions. One earlier was, so where do you go to get the training to become an advocate? And then that person said, hey, I might reach out because I'd like to transition into being an advocate. So those two questions.
So for the training, I went through something called the Twigs program, and it was somebody local in Florida, not local to me, but another city in Florida, where I went through this program that was both, it was hybrid, online, and in person. So we did some classes, well, I'm glad it was hybrid because I could kind of travel to the classes. And it was somebody who'd been advocating for a long time between their own child, their foster family and everything. They had, I want to say, some sort of legal background. I don't remember what specifically and, but anyway, they transitioned into using their knowledge into teaching others all about IDA and everything. And it was just so in-depth and amazing. That's called Twigs, TWIGS. I don't know. She was talking about having just virtual available, so you would be able to do it from anywhere. So you can look up and see if that's a thing still. But it's finding I would just Google IEP advocate trainings, IEP advocate education. But I also started off with a background. My education is in early childhood. I used to be a director and run preschools prior to having my kid. So I already had some education in early childhood would help me with this, especially when a lot of people in the diagnosis stages are actually in preschool age.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of it, but they are in preschool age. And then also with certain disabilities and evaluation processes before I even had a kid who needed it and started doing this. So having any type of education type classes help. There are different certificate programs that are very short 2-year programs in early childhood. It also helps you understand the developing brain of a kid.
So I can tell you, just when I looked it up, I just did IEP advocate training, right? And there's a bunch of them that came up. One that automatically caught my eye just because it is the Council of Parent Attorneys and Advocates. It's called SEAT, and it's 100% online 10-session course for parents and new advocates beginning their journey to become a non-attorney special education advocate. And the parents that are teaching it are attorneys. So that's the part that caught my eye because there is the legalese in it. But yeah, there's several of them out there. So I would say absolutely look into them and see what you think. And council of somebody said council of parent attorneys and advocates.
They're actually on my list. They're one of the groups I follow. They put out some amazing information, and they're also advocates.
Yay, look at that. See? But yeah, so that's it. Just, and the other reason that caught my eye is because attorneys, two, completely online, and that's very, very helpful for people that have kids, right, and that can't travel and all the things. So yeah, okay.
Some of the places offer scholarships too, because obviously there's a cost to doing it.
Yep.
Mine wasn't too bad. Some people too are special education teachers who go into doing this, and that's like, to me, perfect mixture, because you've got the education background as far as the education side of what these children need and how the schools work when it comes to things like access points and all this stuff, combined with the knowledge of IDEA. So that is the perfect combo to me. And if you can take special education teacher, IEP advocate, and lawyer, you can't get more perfect.
Yeah, so it is Council of Parent Attorneys and Advocates, COPAA.org. That's it.
Yeah, they're really great. And I love that they also, in the meantime, do the advocacy with the laws too.
Yep. And so it was the one that got me. And like, so, isn't that interesting? So they have all different types of memberships that you can do. Isn't that cool? So this is me going, this is the age.
I saw the squirrel.
Yes. I'm all in. The squirrel was like, yep, all the way gone. So is education background required? No. Not for this particular place that I'm looking at. So no, it's not. Yep. So give me 1 second. Mila, not so loud. Y'all know she's playing something when she's that vocal.
Yeah. You can absolutely learn to do this without having a degree in something else.
Yes.
You can. You can be an IEP advocate and learn to do this without that.
Yep.
It's like I look at it like it's like any other certificate program that you would go into college for. It's solely focused on this one subject.
So literally they have like a parent membership, and then they have like an advocate member, right? And this is like an annual amount. So one is $60 and one is $120, right? The advocate member is, but so like for the parent membership, it's access to their member community groups, access to member only resources, and then discounts on their training and education opportunities and materials. So like $60 might be worth it to belong. And then if you decide to do the training, then you know that you get a discount, whatever. And by the way, y'all, I'm looking really for myself too.
No, it would be amazing if you got the training in that. You'd pick it up very quick.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not a care manager. I'm an IEP advocate. So when you're in education, they will assign what's called a case manager that works for the school as part of it, as part of a team.
There you go. Okay, so let's just say, I'm going to give you an example because I know there's some stuff that you want to cover. So let's just say that I'm a parent who thinks that my kid may need either an IEP or a 504 or something like that. What's the step? What are the steps that I should be taking, and what's that process look like?
So one of the things that I would do is, if you think that, I always tell people, even if you think they just need a 504, you might want to go through the eligibility termination first, because sometimes there are things there that parents don't pick up on. Like, there's something going on. That's why you're asking for this. But you may not have experience in knowing, like, I think it's ADHD, or I think this. And they may not even have any diagnosis at this point. So there's a variety of different stages. So I always tell people, no matter what stage you're at, if you do not have a 504 IEP, you want to ask for a meeting to determine eligibility. It's called a determination meeting. Some people call it eligibility meeting. It all depends on where you're at. And you want to do that in writing. I even created a sample letter that's in those links. It literally is an example. Let me find it here of what you want to put in this letter. And when I say an email is not just writing, it's a timestamp. Because under IDA, so IDA is the federal law, but then each state and then again, each district has some breakdown of that law that's slightly different. And where it differs, they can't make the federal law more lax, as a simple way to put it, but they can change some things that are vague in it. Like, for instance, sometimes in there isn't timeline, so they create their own timeline. Or there might be a timeline and they actually want to make the timeline shorter. They can't make it longer. So if IDA, the federal law, says they have 90 school calendar days to do this, they can't say, well, we do it in 120, but they can say we do it in 30.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So as I'm in Florida, I know what the timelines are here. I always have to look them up if I'm helping somebody in another state. But typically all of my clients are Florida. You would have to look up how that applies to your state. So if I mention timelines, keep in mind that those timelines can be variable depending on what state you're in. Okay?
Yeah.
So you want to do emails because emails put that time stamp, the date, time that you put things in, and that begins the timeline of when they can respond and do what it is that you're asking. Because there's timelines for just about everything. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yep, 100%.
Okay.
And so so I know that like Laura just said, her district in Iowa says 30 days, right? So I want to.
For which part?
For which part? Yeah. So for ours, they had to have, so after they did the evaluation process or whatever, everything, they had like 30 days to put it all together and come up with a plan and all that sort of stuff. But let me tell you a comment that's coming from YouTube. It says, with one of my children, everything is always blamed on ADHD. And he was already seen by their doctors who said that he doesn't have ADHD. She says, I don't have problems with him completing tasks at home. And he is dyslexic. So, KK, my first question to you would be, does your son have an IEP or a 504? And what type of evaluations have you guys had done through the school system so far? Got any thoughts about that while she's typing back?
So, I agree with that. You want to find out what it is they're doing. If they're blaming everything on ADHD, then I would turn that back on them. I was like, well, obviously, my kid has a disability. So if things are happening because they're ADHD, that means that we need to change what we're doing. I would literally turn it back on them. You are saying that their disability is affecting them in school. So what can we do for them?
Yeah, awesome.
So, they're literally telling you, in their words, their disability is affecting them in school. So, What are we going to do? There needs to be a change. That behavior that they're giving is, I use this over and over again, behavior is communication. So, children aren't inherently bad. Even as adults, when we get cranky or angry or we spout off on somebody, something got us there, and it could be we're hungry or whatever. There are different types of communication, and behavior is definitely one of them. So with ADHD, specifically with children in school, that child is saying this environment isn't working for me in some shape or form, and it's figuring that out. Some people will use behavior plans for that. I am very, 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 very careful about behavior plans because sometimes they can backfire. But the initial part of the behavior plan, if you've got somebody really good that's coming in to do assessment, there are organizations that are outside of the school that'll help sometimes with these things, or you can bring in a doctor or somebody that they see outside the school, some other therapists, that you've okayed and given consent for them to sit in the classrooms and observe the child in that environment, because you don't want it to be the parent. You want an outsider. They can actually observe. They won't give the notes to the teacher. They're there for you. They will come back to you and let you know what they're seeing.
Okay.
And make recommendations. And I don't mean they're in there tattling on the teacher. That's not the point of them. They're literally there to see what types of things they recommend in their professional lens of what could be done or changed to help that child and to reduce those type of behaviors, because what you want to do is you want to hit what's going on.
So KK is saying that her son has a 504 plan and speech. And just so that everybody knows, because breaking news is blowing up my phone, white smoke has come from the Vatican. They have elected a new pope. What you want?
Nada.
No, that's for me. What do you want?
I want this one.
Okay. So yeah, she said her son has a 504 plan and speech.
Right. So 504, wait, they have speech with a 504? Is the speech through the school or private?
KK, she asked, is the speech through the 504 or private?
What?
No. Y'all are hilarious talking about, because I said that now there's white smoke and the Pope has been elected and people are like, new Pope about to drop? New Pope unlocked? Y'all are hilarious. So I'll wait till she types back. There's a little bit of a lag between Facebook and YouTube compared to TikTok world. So again, this is I'm going to say this. I'm going to repeat it again. Guys, please make sure that you are going into my link tree and clicking the little Joy-Con. It looks like a game controller at the very top. And then getting into the Discord, because that is where you will get access to all of the documents, the Google Docs that Cheryl has created that has a bunch of these resources for you. And that way you can have them, you can read them at your leisure, you can take the time to digest them and look them up and all of those things. Okay. So just saying. She said
somebody was mentioning how, while she's looking at that or typing that up, somebody was mentioning that the behavior plan, how can it backfire? Sometimes behavior plans will focus on the child's behavior rather than the cause of the behavior. And they'll make goals in an IEP that reflect what the child should be doing without actual changes to the education or the environment to help the child reach those goals.
Right.
Like removing stimming instead of providing other ways for them to stem that might be conducive to an educational environment. So that's what I mean by backfiring. If you don't have the right people doing it or who have an understanding of ADHD or autism or other type of neurodivergence, sometimes the focus is too much on the behavior rather than the reasons and how to help whatever those reasons may be. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay,
So
that's
KK
what I
said
mean
that
by backfire.
KK said that he has a 504 and his speech is through school too.
Okay, so you need an IEP because right now you have no protections under that speech. You have no way. They could easily just stop, choose not to have it that day. There's so many things. There's no benchmarks, goals. Like, you need to get that. I don't know how. Well, I know how. There are other schools that do it too. It's not the right way to do it. If they have a service that is provided from someone else other than the teacher or anything that's not in the classroom, they need an IEP because that's how you protect those services. Yeah. And it also is, if you see an IEP and you see how it's broken down, you understand the other importances of why it should be an IEP and not a 504.
So KK, you want to request an IEP for your son, and that's a whole process that it'll go through. Cheryl's got documents that kind of outline what to look for and what that process will look like and feel like. But the 504 isn't through, it's not specifically for the education, right? And so that IEP is under the IDEA law, and that will protect those services. And you want to make sure that you have that, especially with the proposed changes to the Department of Education. So
I'm turning my microphone off just 1 second so I can print something and it's not noisy on you.
No problem. All right. So I'm going to just take the second while she's printing something out to say this. Let me say this. I know that a pope has been elected. We've already talked about it. I know it will be like everybody's will pop in just to say a new pope has been elected. We're aware. We know. Great. Dar, I'm not sure what you mean by that sounds counterproductive for the child. I'm not sure what you're referring to. So can you just be specific so I know what you're talking about? Yeah, because the 504s are for anything that is being done by the teacher, right? The IEP is required when somebody other than your teacher is providing the service, right? So if you're having occupational therapy, speech therapy, if you're having a school psychologist, if they're being pulled out for special education meetings and all of that, then that's when you need the IEP.
So an IEP provides the other parts of it that you're missing without an IEP when it comes to what their speech is providing. The speech pathologist is probably doing this on their end, but you want that protection. Like I said, if you don't have an IEP, if they decide, an IEP is a legal document. Okay, 504s are not. I mean, it's not an actual contract. Whereas an IEP, think of it as a contract.
It is
between your child and the school, you, the whole team, as to what your child needs and what they're going to be doing. And if they don't follow that contract, that gives you protections that are in place to make sure it's happening. But it's also not just a contract. It's a more in-depth plan that has like benchmarks and goals. So everything they're doing with speech, it has it down to how often it's happening, who's providing it, where they're doing. All these things can be put into an IEP, whether it's group speech, individual speech, all these things. So they don't lose speech by you getting an IEP. If anything, they're gaining the protections.
right.
So you're not asking them to remove speech. You're asking them to do an IEP. And the other reason too is getting an IEP involves a screening process that will go in more depth to looking into other things that might be being missed in speech, things that, you know what I mean? So it's like you want to have that screening process done.
Yep, 100%. And so
I have a letter. You guys can't see this here, but I'll explain it to you. This is my sample email that's in that. It says in there, it's titled Sample Letter Guide to Requesting Initial Evaluations by the Public School District. Okay, that's the title of it. Just look for sample letter. And it gives you the guidelines. Like I said, this is based on Florida. So my timelines, within 30 school calendar days, they have of them receiving your letter, they have to, at that point, hold a meeting and get back to you and sign the consent for event evaluation consent form and hold a meeting, discuss with you. They might just not even do a meeting. They might even say, yeah, we're seeing this too. Here are the forms for signing consent. Now, that can be good or bad. You need to look at that form and see what evaluations they're offering on that signed consent. You want to do, there's always the psychoeducational evaluation, but there are different other types of evaluations, like I said, which are things that you can Google and look for evaluations. Like if you think there's specific disabilities, you can look for. Schools cannot diagnose medical disabilities, but they can screen and look for signs and to let you know, we might see these things going on for you to get an outside evaluation done and bring that diagnosis back. But you want to check, because that first initial signature that you give for an evaluation is called a first initial evaluation. Whatever's under there has a timeline. In Florida, that timeline is 60 school calendar days. Like I said, different in different states. Any evaluation after that initial one, even if it's a different type of evaluation, like you just said, oh, they need a brief done, or let's do cognitive testing, or do a speech like any other, is still called a second reevaluation, and IDA states in a timely manner. There is no dated timeline.
right.
So throw as many of the different types of evaluations that you can think of that your child might need in that first initial one. Okay?
Yeah.
It's always my advice there. So now, like I said, some states might have made their own timeline for the next one too, but IDEA states that. For the letter, obviously you want to I always recommend people do it in a very professional manner. You don't just write it in the email, you actually write it in a document, you attach it as a PDF in the email, and then paste it in the email too. So they're both getting something they can print out that doesn't look like an email, and it's still time dated. So you want to write a real letter, okay? You put at the top, principal's, put in the principal's email address, put everything in. And I just say this to look professional because to me, any way you can make it sound more like you know what you're doing, the more they listen.
Yep.
Even if you're faking it till you make it, you want to sound like you know what's going on, okay?
Yep. Agreed.
You're addressing it to the principal, the main administrator, but you are sending this to anyone that you want to include. The assistant principal, the guidance counselor, the teacher or teachers, everybody. And just so you know, requesting determination and evaluation, the fact that there might be a disability, can be done by anyone. The teacher could be somebody who's requesting. The team is literally anybody involved with that child. So anybody, the PE teacher could be requesting it.
Yeah,
So,
I'll give you guys an idea. Like for us with Bella, like when Cheryl's talking about the difference, and she's saying think of the IEP like a contract. It is so because okay. So to give you an idea, it came time for Bella's review. No, Trump did not dismantle these programs. No, he did not. And so this is the important thing for people to understand, that he didn't dismantle anything. And this is one of the reasons why this topic is so important right now, is you want to make sure that you have everything in place so that whatever changes do take place with funding and whatever, you have what you need to make sure your children get what they need. And that is why when we talk about the IEP being something that is legally protected for K through 12 education, that's the reason. It is under the IDEA law, whereas your 504s are just accommodations that they can stop giving. When you have an IEP, they are legally required and there is accountability and all types of things that go with it. So, yeah, I think it's just very important. And by the way, this is also another reason when we have conversations with the people that are in our circles of influence, it's not about bashing Trump. It's about talking about protecting our children. It's about ensuring that our children have access to public education that is inclusive, that meets their needs, that gives them the opportunity to not just survive, not just attend, but to thrive and to exceed expectations. That is what we want for everyone's child. I want that for all children, for migrant children, citizen children, like whatever. I don't really care. Republican children, Democratic children. I don't think that children fall into those categories, but the children of those types of parents, I don't really care. Children should not be victims of our world and our political differences. Children should be protected at all costs, and we should all be able to come together on that note. So my hope is that you can take conversations like this and information from this and use it to have conversations in your circles of influence and in your communities to bring people together around the issue without talking about parties.
So yeah, I won't get into it here. That could be a different live. You talked about it some. What they're looking to do is propose. The only thing at this point that has changed that's made a difference to this, that's, I would say, a major change. Some of the enforcement is more difficult just because of what happened with OCR. But at this point, that has been the only major change. Okay. Mm-hmm. But the hopes is that if you're following these processes and doing these things and sounding like you know what you're talking about and using specific words and stuff, it won't get to the point that you need that type of enforcement.
Yeah.
So that's the goal, is to not need that. With your letter, you want to, the very first thing you want to do is you want to say, I'm hereby requesting. You don't have to write the way I wrote it, but I gave an example. That's how I'd write it. And I put the name of the county that your school district is in. County school district to conduct a comprehensive, important word, comprehensive psychoeducational evaluation for my child. So that's the basic one, but comprehensive covers more than just, there's different types of psychoeducation. There's other things you can add to it, okay? Comprehensive adds like cognitive, there could be IQ testing, things like that. So you definitely want to look in what types of evaluations. Like I said, there's other things you can add on. If you think that there's ADHD or you already have a diagnosis of ADHD or autism and those type of things, I would add brief. Brief again, it's like the word brief, but as an acronym. And I would definitely make sure that you include that one no matter what with this, but you can look into and Google what other types of evaluations are available specific to the disabilities that you think are happening. What's important in this letter, though, you're not going to discuss the name or label of a disability unless they already have one, okay? Unless they've already been diagnosed something. What you want to discuss in this letter is the areas that they're struggling. You want to put in detail things as specific as you can of the ways that their disability is affecting them in the school environment without naming their disability. Is that making sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you can talk about, they might have trouble with transitions from moving on from doing one thing to another. You can describe what that's like for them. It's like describing your anxiety without saying anxiety. It's like that type of way. And I don't want to go into detail because there's so many different disabilities in the way that children are affected. Let's see what I got on here. You could put in there, so like transitions between activities and classes, if they're forgetting papers and assignments, or they forget to turn in homework or bring homework home. If they're non-speaking or they struggle to articulate their words, or what they need or how they're feeling, or communication in other ways. They might be anxious about going to school altogether, and you're not, that could be something new. It could have been from before, but it could also be new experience. That means something has changed. It could be they struggle with motor skills, like holding a pencil, cutting, buttoning their clothes, going to the bathroom on their own without needing help with their clothing or wiping. Anything you can think of. Focus on things. You want to focus on those types of areas of how it affects them in school, but also on the subjects of like reading and math and science, where as a parent, where you see them struggling. So you want to sit down and think about that. Some of you, depending on your child, you might be able to talk to your child directly about this too. Have them describe it and explain it if they can, because part of this is helping them learn to advocate for themselves and to really think about it. You want them to learn because these are disabilities that they're going to always have. So I try to make my kid part of the process from the get-go. Obviously, it looks different from a 5-year-old to a 15-year-old. But it's a continuous thing. So getting information from your child can also be eye-opener on that information because they're the one in the classroom all day. They might need some direction in that conversation. Like, oh, tell me what you do in music class. Can you explain what it's like to be in music? Or, you kind of want to give them cues to get that conversation going.
Yep. And it's direction, but without leading, right? So, yes. And that's really important when you're talking to your kids about what's transpiring in their classrooms. Don't use any of the words that you're looking for. It's literally, you're just prompting them. So share with me kind of what happens in music, what happens in art, like what does Miss such and such do when she's, giving you guys your lessons? What does it look like?
Your kid might say, I get angry at math time every day.
Yep.
They might not be able to tell you why they get angry, but that's a pretty clear sign something's going on during math time.
Yep, absolutely, 100%. So for those of you guys, there's a conversation that's happening here. Glitzy Girl is talking about her school refusing to test for dyslexia and things like that. I can see the whole comment, but she said that
if you're refusing, you can get an outside evaluation done if you're able to do that, and they have to consider any diagnosis that's brought in from someone else. You can also request to have what's called a personal private evaluation, a PPE, where school pays for you to have somebody else do it. You need to find out why they're refusing. If you can get them in an eligibility meeting, like the meeting I'm telling you to request here, and they're still refusing it, I'll talk about what's called it's a PWN, which is a prior written notice. And that's one of the legal contract words, I'm not a lawyer, that I'm going to teach you that is extremely useful in these IEP meetings and how to prevent and get help with certain things. Okay. And it sounds like that's something that you might need.
Yeah. She's saying dyslexia screening is $400 and they won't pay.
It is an IEE in some places too. Yes. But either way, it's a private evaluation outside of the school that the school can cover.
Yeah.
So, because some schools are in the middle of hiring, like they don't have a speech therapist or they don't have certain things filled, which sounds awful. It is awful. But it does happen. And they either can contract out where they pay somebody from a local business to come in or an independent to come in, or they can cover you getting it done somewhere else. So that's another thing that people don't like. They might get told, well, we don't have a speech therapist. It's not as simple as that. By law, they still have to help you get that evaluation one way or the other.
Yeah. And so it's just knowing how to advocate. KK is asking on YouTube, how do you push back on getting dyslexia services? And the teacher and she both think that her daughter has it, but the school is saying her IQ is on par, which I don't know what her IQ has to do with dyslexia, because those two things are not connected.
I was saying this the other day. So one of the things, and this is an analogy you guys can use because sometimes it stops people in their tracks. For some reason, people get in their head, and I think it's a subconscious thing, that if you are of higher intelligence or gifted or, they think that you can cure yourself of your disabilities or can't be disabled. And I tell them, okay, so the next time I see a highly smart person in a wheelchair, I'm going to tell them, you can walk, just get up and do it. Your brain will do it for you. You're super smart, so you should be able to make that happen.
Yes. Yeah.
You just have to, sometimes, you don't have to do it nasty, but sometimes you have to show them what they're saying so they can hear it, the words that are coming out of their mouth, because they don't always hear the words coming out of their mouth. That's actually a tactic I use in meetings all the time. I will, besides getting them to repeat themselves a lot, I will turn what they said into questions, exactly word for word, but in question form.
Yeah. It would be like saying, so go tell Stephen Hawking, right, that he could have just gotten up, walked around, talked normal, like all the other things. He didn't really have ALS, right? Like Lou Gehrig's disease does not affect like intelligent people. And just like, because we all know that that's not in any way, shape, or form a true thing, right? But yeah. I also think that people automatically think that if there's some sort of disability, that means there's a lack of intelligence, and it's not a thing, folks. Your intelligence level has nothing to do with
nothing.
Yeah. So
they're not providing what's called FAPE, which is in IDEA. FAPE is Free Appropriate Public Education. That's another acronym that you want to learn. FAPE, free. It's FAPE. Free Appropriate Public Education. There's an acronym that is used a lot throughout IDEA. And when I say IDEA, I mean the laws and statutes. They're required to provide that. The key word being appropriate. That appropriate is individual to the student, to that child. What is appropriate for that child? Not what the school deems appropriate for all the kids under their umbrella. That individual child, what's appropriate for them.
For them, yeah.
So you got to make sure that you point that out, that they're not providing that. And they're also, you need to look up what's called child find law. Okay? Child find, FINDE, child find law. Child find law is part of IDEA. The schools are required, even for children that are not in their school, who are just in their district. So like homeschooling kids, you could be in private school, it doesn't matter. They're required to evaluate children for possible disabilities, because if there are signs of a disability, they are required to evaluate and identify it. So go and read the child find law. That is one that you really want to have under your belt and understand and know. And that's 3 years of age. There's preschool ESE. A lot of people don't know this, and there are other services they can get, even not being in preschool, through the school district, starting at age 3.
Yeah.
So you can get evaluations starting at 3. It's like if you think that they need help with speech, that could be one of the ends of IEPs into the school system, starting at age 3, 4, 5, like before they're in kindergarten, through age 21, because you can get extensions to graduation based on disability and needs, and you keep those services in your education through age 21.
Yep.
So that means that your graduation is at 21.
Right. And I just want to say this. So I know Common Not Chaos is offering some things in the comments as well. So one of the things that Calm and Not Chaos is saying is, she says, I agree with them. And then I say, but, so that she's not accused of being difficult. And so if I could offer one above that, I agree. And then I say, and. Because when you say but, it's like I'm discounting all the things that came before it, right? So I'll say, absolutely, I hear you and I agree with you. And da 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 da. So the but indicates a separation between those two things. But if I just replace the but with an and, I'm saying I get you, and this is also true at the same time. And so It's just more of an agreement and a positive conversation. Yeah, she said, I love and so much more. And you guys, so I'll just tell you the and thing, I use it in many conversations. People have heard me do it here on TikTok with people that, when we have differences of opinion, I do it with friends. I do it with the kids. Yep. It just is a great way of, because I'll give you an example. Somebody can say, I'm going to give you just one that every one of us can relate to. Well, most of us can relate to. It's, I want to lose weight, but I hate going to the gym. Right? So that just means it makes it sound like losing weight's not possible because I hate going to the gym, right? I want to lose weight, but I hate going to the gym. But if I change that, watch what happens. I want to lose weight and I hate going to the gym. So then it says, okay, well, what are the other possibilities? You want to lose weight and you hate going to the gym. So what do you love to do? Do you love to go for a walk? Do you love playing in the yard with the kids? Do you love to go swimming? Do you love to, it opens up the door, the and creates possibilities and conversations all the time. So whenever you are faced with something where you feel like your options are limited, throw that and in there, wherever the but is, remove it and throw an and then see what possibilities you can create from that space.
Yeah, two things can be true at once too. So you want that, but this is one of those situations where the words you use matters. Well, I feel like it does always, but really important in this situation. You really want to think about what you're saying and how you're saying it, because it can make a huge difference in how you're perceived, how they take it.
100%.
So there's another thing that the schools can do. Some places still call it RTI. It's MTSS or RTI. So MTSS is let me see if I can get this, multi-tiered systems of supports. And see if I can remember RTI, because we don't use RTI here, so I'm trying to remember what RTI is. They mean this, they're the same thing though. Let me look it up real quick so I can make sure I give you the right thing instead of off the top of my head.
Response to intervention.
Yes, thank you. Response to intervention. So when this is used correctly, it's sort of like an evaluation system, but it's by collecting long-term data. So what they do is they start at certain tiers of providing some sort of accommodation or change in it might even be change in curriculum and things like that, what they're doing with them. And they're working up and they're collecting data. They want to see if they respond to the things that they're doing while collecting all this data and meet back with you. But the thing with this system is that there's no timeline. And not everywhere does it the same. Not every individual school within a district does it the same, even though there should be a set way to do it. I've seen great differences. I have seen somebody say, well, I'm in the NTSS or the RTI, and it's been a year. Some have even told me 2 years. You don't want to just have that in place for them. They're going to say, no IEP, we're going to do this first. And then we'll meet back after we collect data. When? It's just a matter of you're still on them with it. I'm not saying that this system doesn't work and provide good data. What I'm saying is you do both. You say, I want that. Let's start doing that. But we're also going to start the process of evaluations for an IEP. You want to have them both going. And there's literally a memo that the Department of Education put out stating that these can be done at the same time and that this should not be a place marker for putting off an IEP. And I put it in the document where it's actually in there in 2 places, but it's definitely with this sample letter, a link to that document, and you can take that with you. Mm-hmm. So if they tell you they want to do this and you're saying, no, they can be done at the same time, I want them at the same time, I want to start the process, you show them that letter from the Department of Education that states they can do it at the same time, and they should not use that as a way to pause and put off evaluating for an IEP.
Yeah, so Life on Purpose is saying that the school where she is at collects RTI data for at least 8 weeks.
And if you still need an IEP, then you have to start that process and wait for that timeline after they're done, which is why you want to do it at the same time.
Yeah.
Because think about the timeline of a school year. How much education is missed, and in that time period, if there's any behavior, the behavior is still escalating because they're still not getting their needs met. So you really want to push to have them done at the same time. Now, that process, if you think you have a child that only needs a 504, is going to be great. But if they really need an IEP, the only thing that process is going to do is provide some more great data to show they need an IEP. So that's why I'm not saying I'm against it. Like, you absolutely need to do that process too if you can, and they'll do it. That's great. But do it at the same time as you're doing these evaluations. Okay.
Does anybody have any questions about that part, about getting those things done at the same time and what each of them does? Because that was a lot. So if you guys want
it's
to
NTSS, and you can also put in, like, if you're going to Google that letter, you could put in memorandum from Department of Education on NTSS/RIT and see if you can pull up the memo yourself if you're not in the Discord. But I have the link on one of these documents in Discord. So it's there. You don't have to have the document with you, but I always say it's great to be prepared for whatever might come up. Whether it be that they email you this and you need to show it, or if it's during an IEP eligibility meeting to determine, if you want to move on. Because sometimes you'll get that meeting, and the meeting is to sign the consent for evaluations. That's typically how it starts. And then you want to have that letter with you if you can, if they try to say, we're going to do this instead. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I'm over here looking at, so when I type that in, I happen to see something from our state, and I was like, what are you all saying?
Well, this one's from the Federal Department of Education.
Yeah.
You want that one because it trumps that.
Yeah. Oh no, they're saying, listen to, I love this. Okay. So, so this is what I'm saying. I don't know how it is anywhere else in the state, but this is from the state that I'm in and their Department of Education. And this is from the director. This is 2 years ago, literally. And it says, it has come to our attention that initial evaluations have sometimes been delayed or denied by local education agencies until a child goes through MTSS process, sometimes referred to as response to intervention. Although the term RTI is no longer commonly used to describe a state's multi-tiered system of supports, the attached memoranda apply to all tiered systems of support, whether the state uses an RTI, MTSS, or a unique state name. The basis for this memoranda is the child find requirements in Section 612A3 of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Each IDEA Part B and Part C grantee must ensure it has a system in place for meeting the child find requirements as a condition for funding. The United States Department of Education, Special Office of Special Education Programs, reminds state educational agencies and LEAs that the Part B regulations at blah, 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 allow a parent to request an initial evaluation, and this is in a disability DEA. And then it references another memorandum, which is the one you're talking about, states MTSS/RTI may not be used to delay or deny a full and individual evaluation under 34 CFR, blah, 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 for a child suspected of having a disability. A child can be placed in or continue to receive interventions during the evaluation process. Results from interventions can be evaluable data that can contribute to a comprehensive evaluation. I love the fact that this is basically our state Department of Education saying, hey, some of you guys are telling parents, they can't have an initial evaluation for an IEP until they finish MTSS or interventions. And we are telling you that what you're doing is illegal and you can't do that. So if a parent requests this, they are legally allowed to do that, and it shall be afforded to them at any time. So I love the fact that this came from that's why when I saw it, I was like, ooh, I'm
It's
excited.
like they're saying what I said or something.
Yeah, it's saying exactly
to
what
a T.
Cheryl just said to a T. And so, guys, this is the stuff. And so what does that tell me? It tells me that I don't know about every state, but my state is very aware of what the IDEA law says. It's very aware about child fine law requirements. And so those basic things are great that Cheryl has shared with us today, because they are the ways to crack open doors for your child to get the evaluations that they need and deserve. So I think that's incredible and amazing. So
another key point to that too, because it was mentioned in there, and I meant to mention this at the beginning, is that you are part of the team. You are literally part of the team. It could be the parent, the guardian, it could be the grandparent, that's who's taking care of the meetings, a foster parent, whoever has the legal ability to be the advocate for that child. You are part of the team. Your decisions and words and what you bring to the table is at equal relevance to everyone else sitting at that table.
Yep.
And I know that it can be quite, when you do get into these meetings, you start having these meetings, it can be quite intimidating. They're going to start doing things like throwing around these words and acronyms and things that you don't know. Tell them to slow down. Tell them to explain it to you. Tell them, what does that acronym mean? Those are very important things that you need to make sure that you're pointing out and they do, because that's knowledge they have that you don't have.
Yep.
You're coming in with the knowledge of your child. They're coming in with the knowledge of education and the IEP process. We've got to combine those two. And another great resource is the teacher. The teacher is with your child during the day in the school environment. And so if you've got that relationship with the teacher, I would talk to them before the meetings, get information. They will often provide you data.
Yep.
And the other thing is that I can tell people, like, I can come in and make the most beautiful IEP contract ever, but if there's no buy-in, it's going to be a struggle to get them to follow that thing. And not only that, if the situation that school in or that classroom or the teacher can't follow everything you put in there, then it was pointless. So you want to have that direction of the teacher too, and have a conversation with them with their teaching style, how they run their classrooms. You know, my kid, this is what they need. What should we be putting in there? What should we be asking for that works for both combined together to make that happen?
Right.
So you're part of that. You're part of that team.
And so, and just so that you guys understand, so some of you all are like my family situation. Like, you know, I'm very open. My daughter has 2 jobs, right? So I have the grands when she's at work, and we just kind of collaborate and make things go together. So when it came time for her IEP, here's the thing, what Cheryl was just saying that's so important. I'm not their legal guardian. Their mother is. But I have a significant role in their life. So guess what? She reached out to the school. The school got it added that I could be there, but she had to be there too because she's the legal guardian. So that's the legal part of that IEP situation. It is because it's under law. So it has to be that way. But we both got to be there because she's in both of our homes, right? And so we all got to add in together. And it's so funny because they're building this other school and we're not sure like whose kids are going to be anywhere. And I'm very like, I want her to stay here because she's with you and da da da. And she said, okay, so I'm just going to tell you right now, they're going to take care of our girl no matter what. She was like, and if she's put on the list to go to that school, I will personally go over there. I will meet with them ahead of time. I will da 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 da. You just let me know. But guess what? We shared those concerns. Hey, she is familiar. She is like, it was something as simple as going to a new grade and changing the hall that she walked down. And they thought it was a great idea for some reason to change the colors of the halls from one year to the next. So when she was used to purple and yellow, she now had to choose between green and blue. And it's Cheryl's face she's making this face because we don't think that should be anything, whatever. But for her to go in and
devastating.
it was, yeah. And so for the first like week or two at school, she came home crying. And I was like, what in the world? And because she got so frustrated trying to figure out which hall to go down and like, did green replace yellow or did green replace purple and all of that. And so like her special education teacher went and got her a couple of times because she was like, she's here, but we gotta, but it's those little types of things. And so this relationship, when you talk about being part of the team, pull in the people that you need. We have, for some reason, in American society, ventured away from the village mentality. We have, like everybody lives in their houses or in their apartments, and they don't know who their neighbors are. Nobody's borrowing a cup of sugar or eggs or any of that stuff, or you might not know. We have got to get back to this, this way of being that says, I don't care when I'm outside whose child is on the playground or running in the parking lot of the street. I'm going to say, hey, where's your mama? Because you know what I mean? So I'm just saying we are all part of the teams. And so pull in the people in your life that have significant roles with your children, not only because they contribute to the conversations, but because they will learn so much from being on the team. So think about it. What if I didn't participate in any of the IEP conversations? What if I didn't have conversations with her special education teacher? The behaviors that I see here, I would have no concept of what they meant or how to reinforce the techniques they're using at school. It does us no good if we're each using different techniques, right?
We're on the same page.
Yeah, we're on the same page. And so we're recognizing the same things. And I'll give you a perfect example. One of the things she said to me was, hey, have you all noticed that when you give her choices, it takes her it takes her a while to kind of choose something. And just think about when you're in a classroom and each kid has to choose like this or that. And you got one child that can't choose this or that. Here's what I noticed with Belle. If you keep asking her, it only makes it worse. It only delays her thinking. And dear God, please don't add a third or fourth option to it. Right?
Yeah.
And so she said, you know what we're doing here? We give 2 verbal prompts. And then the third time we say, hey, you got to make a decision or I'm going to make the choice for you. You make the choice or I'll make it for you. Right? Well, now that that's being done, I used it just last night. You can choose to go do this or do that, or I'm going to choose it for you. So anyway, just to reinforce what Cheryl is saying about being part of the team and making sure that everybody's on the same sheet of music.
And it literally lists an IDEA that you are. You are legally part of that team. So, I mean, it's further down into it, like once you have an IEP, but they cannot make changes without your input. They can't close out an IEP without your input. You are part of that team. So the other thing is too, is that we have a lot, and I feel like it's getting worse, the mentality in every shape or form of us versus them and everything. And I will tell you, people do not go into education to get a paycheck. Okay? They're doing that because they want to be in education and to help students. Now, it's a little different with students with disability that comes with the package. Not all of them feel equipped to do it. Some of them do, but they're there because they want to be there for those kids. Okay? I have gone into meetings where the relationship between the parent and the administration is so broken that there was no fixing it. Because the administration, the teacher, everybody had gone to the point where even though they were, there for the kid as much as they could not talk to this parent. So you want to make sure you have those strong relationships. And the teacher is my first stop, always. And the teachers, to be quite honest, from what I see and from the vast amount of friends I have that happen to be teachers, they are dumped on heavily in the school system. And they have very little supports themselves to do the job they're there to do. The expectations on a teacher is, I would never want to be a teacher. Okay, let's just say that. Okay, and they want to do everything they can, which is why I say having conversations with them, even outside of these meetings, to talk to them about how they run their classrooms, what works for them, and how they can best work with your child. Oftentimes, they have ideas that you've never thought of what they can do. I mean, they have the experience. They've worked with a variety of kids, and they want to. And if they know they have your support too, it's just better. You want to create that relationship.
Yep.
The other thing I recommend too is immediately start what I call an organization or binder called All About Me, a binder on your child. Okay. And you're going to keep in that binder copies. I literally say print out important emails and put them in there. You want to have those at the meetings with you. You don't want to have to take the time. Let me pull this up. You want it in the binder. You keep in data. You want to keep in examples of their schoolwork, report cards, any evaluations that have been done, testing, assessments. Keep a binder with you that you add to an update, okay? The names of the people that are in your team. You know, I have a tendency to forget people's names. I'm terrible with names. I remember faces, not names. I write all the names down to try to be more respectful just to know them because I feel like it's good to remember these people. I have little things like descriptions of what they look like so I can put the name with the person. It's terrible. but I don't want them to think I forgot them.
Right.
So you want to do things like that. And the other key important part is your child is part of this. So even though they may not attend the meetings, I have different information on that. You want to make sure that they have a voice in the meeting. So I created when my child was younger this form, and you can find samples of them online, called All About Me for IEPs, where their information the child wants to bring to the meeting. And it could be things about their strengths, things the kids have challenges with. They feel like, I need my teacher to help me with this, you know? These type of things, their favorite color, just so they're part of it, okay? Yeah. You want that to be the front of the binder. And that's part of the meeting. The other thing you can do as your child or your child's ability, everybody's child's different, what they want to do, they can come in at the beginning of the IEP meetings. You let everybody know in an email that my child is coming. They're going to be there at the beginning. They're going to speak on what their challenges are, their strengths are, and then they're going to leave and we're going to have the meeting. Because I can tell you it's really hard to hear a bunch of people talk about you, even though they're all there to help you. To hear that, and sometimes these meetings could go anywhere from a half hour to I've been in a 5-hour meeting.
Oof.
So they can be very, very, very long, and you don't want to hear that. Now, legally, the school has to invite the child at a certain age. I don't know if people know that. They will be sent when an IEP meeting is created. You only know the child will be sent an invitation to that meeting. Okay, they have to invite them. I believe it's age 16 for most states. Some states will do it earlier. Like in New York, it's 14. And they should be part of any transition meetings. Transition meetings usually start between ages of 14, 15 to 16, depending on if they've got extended graduation and so on, transition or whatever they're doing. So the children should be part of those meetings. But they will legally be invited to the meeting. And it's different by different states, but I think it's by 16, no matter what state you're in. I'd have to go back and clarify that. But by then, most children are participating anyway. So that's things to keep in mind. And if you are already working with your child where they've somewhat participated, even if it's just at the beginning and leave, you're preparing them for that. And you want them to have a larger voice in it. So they're the ones that are going to be living with the disabilities once they're adults. You want to teach them how to advocate for themselves. And this is a huge part of that. This is a great way. Including in 504 meetings. They do not have to be invited to them legally because that's not a contract. I see the question there about 504 meetings.
Yep.
A 504 plan is not a legal binding contract. I would have them participate. Actually, 504 meetings, they're usually pretty benign. They could participate in all of them, honestly, in my opinion. But that's up to you as to when you want them to start participating. You could do the same thing where they come in at the beginning and leave. They can talk about what accommodations are working and not. I would have conversations with your child before the meeting, getting them ready, helping them, maybe they might, like my kid likes to rehearse before they speak. Imagine that, they want to rehearse. So, things like that. Yeah. But anyway, these are things a lot of parents don't know. And your child is also the team. So, anyway, does anybody have any questions about that? I don't know am I giving people new info?
Yes, you are. Because I can tell you, and then somebody in the comments said, you guys are so lucky you're getting this information on TikTok for free because I had to pay an advocate for it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that.
Advocates, yeah. Let's see. So do the letter. You want to do this letter. You put this information in there. Like I said, there's sample letter. You can find other sample letters online too, but they vary greatly. The key point to me is making sure that you're focusing in this letter when you're requesting an IEP is, like I said, samples. Some people like to say flags. I don't want to say flags because that sounds alarming. Samples of the reasons you feel that there is a disability going on, or you may already know, and you're just describing how their disability affects them.
Yeah.
That's it. You want to put this information in there. Then when we kind of steered off from it, MTSS, I literally recommend in the letter to mention the fact that if MTSS program needs to be initiated to help my child with the struggles that I have mentioned, I am requesting a meeting to be held as soon as possible so that we can initiate that plan, and I want to participate. But it goes into saying, but I still want the IEP meeting, and I still, basically. So that letter is there and explains how to say that. And I even provide a link to the document. When I'm helping people make these, I haven't put the link to that document in that email when they're requesting a meeting. Like, I'm just going to start from the beginning saying, we're not playing that.
Right. Yep.
Because I want to get this ball rolling.
Yep. When you send these emails and you include links to the resources, to the law, to the document, to whatever, it tells those individuals this person knows enough that there could be legal ramifications for us to not do what we're supposed to do. And it's the same way when you're listen, it's the same way when you go into a doctor's office meeting or a hospital, right? And you know your patient's rights. You know that you can request to be transferred to another facility. You know you have the right to ask for a second opinion. You know you have the right to, have these things explained and whatever. Like, it's the same thing. Knowing your child's rights and your rights as a parent and an advocate for that child is incredibly important. And so when you provide those links, those resources, and that information, it lets them know, listen, we're not playing around. This is the way that we can do that. So, and I will say this. So calm and not chaos. I will say this as somebody who has the ability to edit PDFs, nothing is off limits, right? But the email, because I'm putting it in writing, then we're all copied on it. And so you can't change what I have sent to you because I also have a copy of it. PDFs generally, most people can't edit. Some people can, like my Adobe can change it. I can take your PDF and click on that sucker and edit it however, but some people don't. But I'm just saying, the thing is that because you have a copy of absolutely everything, and because you're using that verbiage, there you go. So you know how to lock the PDFs. A lot of people don't. So she was like, I'm a civil litigation paralegal, so I know about locking them. A lot of people don't know how to lock PDFs. But you can lock them. So
you absolutely can lock them.
Yep. So just as a little non-IEP tidbit, though, you can lock a PDF so that somebody else can edit it.
On the administrative side of things.
On the administrative side of things, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I used those when I made contracts for the disability resource expos. I used to use to be contracts for our vendors. And that's all I used was PDFs that I would lock that they could just fill out sections that were unlocked for them.
Yep, 100%.
So I had to learn all about that for that.
Yep. So
the other thing I recommend for those IEP meetings, though, bringing a friend. Out of courtesy, you should let schools know when somebody's attending the meeting 10 days. So when they set up that IEP meeting with you, they're supposed to give you, again, 10 days notice. Florida's 10 days. You need to check to see what your state is. But they're supposed to give you a notice of the meeting. One, so you can plan for time off, reschedule if that time and date doesn't work for you, get anybody else or documents to the meeting. If they're coming with documents, like for instance, if they've done the evaluations, right? When they schedule that meeting to meet to go over it, you immediately respond with, I would like to see the documents. Could you send those to me now so I can be prepared for the meeting? They should send you all of that before you even get to the meeting. So you have a chance to read them because they're all going to have read them when you walk into that meeting.
So Mr. Barrios is asking, can we record meetings?
So it's different in different states. First of all, you never record somebody without somebody knowing. It doesn't, even if they said yes, you can record, it doesn't mean legally it can do anything for you. I don't recommend recording because depending on the state you're in, it actually could make it more problematic. So I had a parent who needed meetings recorded due to their own disabilities. So that was placed inside of our meeting notes that it was being recorded for their disabilities and why, and explain the reasoning. So you have to look into your state and see if that's going to be beneficial or not. And the reason I say that it could be something that goes against you, if your state's against it and they all agree in the meeting, you can't use any part of that recording. It could actually affect you if you have to go through doing legal channels of something because you're not supposed to be recording. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So,
if you need it for yourself to remember things later, what I was about to recommend is that you bring somebody to the meeting. I say bring a friend. You bring it doesn't even have to be somebody who hangs out with your kid. You need to bring a friend to take notes for you so you can concentrate on the meeting. You need somebody who you know is going to take good notes. You can talk ahead of time, like you can do things like, for me, when I've had a friend come to me in the past, I will say, I'm going to point to your pad when that's something I need you to write down. So that way I'm not stopping, I'm not interrupting anybody, and they know, oh, I need to write that part. Like if you're not sure that there's something key that you want in there, you need to bring somebody who's going to take notes. But in IEP meetings, there is a staff member taking notes too. So the other part of the note taking is at the end of the IEP meeting, I don't care if it's been 5 hours, you ask them to read the notes that they took. And if there's anything missing that happened in the meeting or said and it was not put in those notes, you ask them to put it in there. Because that's part of that document.
Yes. And so and when we did ours, we literally got it emailed to us with the notes with everything in it. And we had a draft to be able to review to see if we wanted anything added before it was signed and executed and all that stuff. So a couple of questions that are in the comments. So one says, what about using a device that transcribes the meeting with consent, of course?
Absolutely, especially if it's something that you need. I mean, oftentimes these kids come from parents with disabilities too. I mean, an apple tree, that's necessary. If you feel like you can't keep up with notes and that's what you want to do, you can ask them. It's not recording, it's just transcribing. I can't think of any reason that would not be allowed. Yeah. Now you might want to check with your state. That's not recording. That's just transcribing. I don't think that it would be a problem. And honestly, most transcribing isn't perfect anyway. Yeah, you have to go back and fix things like, what is that word that it's got there? But anyway,
100%.
I've had to use it where I've had meetings where, because I'm not a fast note taker. And I want to be able to hear all the things. And as my brain, the way it works, I'm thinking of 50 million things. So trying to write everything too is a real pain. So I've had it where I've had it transcribed. It just doesn't always come out great.
Yeah.
But it's better than nothing if you can't take notes.
Yeah.
Just ask ahead of time. Let them know that it's not recording. It's literally transcribing. There shouldn't be any problem.
Right.
So the other thing is too, with bringing them into the meeting, you want to make sure that you have somebody there. You let them know that you're bringing somebody and tell them why. So this friend is coming along in order to take notes for me, and just say just for moral support. Whatever, because like I said, it can be very intimidating. Everyone else in the meeting knows each other, and you're there yourself.
Yep. So
having somebody's great, or a spouse or whatever coming in. I don't know about you guys, but in my family, I'm the talker. My husband's the listener, so he would take notes.
Yep.
And be there for support. Now he'll speak up at key points when he feels like he needs to, and then he's heard because it's rare. But yeah.
Right. So a couple of things that are coming from the comments. The most recent iPhones have the transcription abilities, and Otter is also a good app that will also transcribe and bookmarks and that sort of thing. So here's what I'd like to do, because there are people that have requested up, and I want to say this with all love and kindness and all the things, empathy, consideration, compassion, everything. I need you to hear me. For those of you that have recorded up. What I would like to do is be able to answer as many questions, like specific questions that people have, What I don't want to use this particular time for is for everybody to join the panel and then share like your entire backstory and history, because it's just not helpful for everybody that's here. So yes.
Concise questions, specific concise questions. And sometimes those can't be answered because sometimes you do need a lot of story.
Yeah.
And we can't do that here.
Yep. So, and if you have more story than that, more question than that require something, then Cheryl has said you can reach out to her, but you give her a minute to respond. So Kaylin is asking, if you don't agree to the IP or the 504, can you not sign off on it and then ask for another evaluation? And the answer is yes, because it is a contract. You have to agree.
There are legal things you need to do though. So like if the agreement is that they're not providing something, you want to do something that's called a prior written notice. And it's going to sound weird because the word prior, that makes it sound like you're supposed to be psychic and they ask for a written notice before you know what they're doing. But that's what it's called, is a prior written notice. Keep those words in your head. A PWN, very important words. If you're denied an IEP, if you're denied an evaluation, if you're denied anything inside of this, does not work for 504s, by the way. If you're denied anything in the IEP that you think you can prove they need, you ask for a prior written notice.
Yeah.
There's a timeline on when they have to get that to you too. Okay. And now it's in their hands to show all the data as to why they feel they do not need to provide that for your child.
Okay.
In writing.
And yeah, we love everything in writing. Okay, so
they have to provide in writing. Yeah.
I would almost.
They have to provide documentation, all the reasonings. It has to be something that would fly in a court.
Yeah.
It's now in their hands once you've requested that, but you have to be able to show when you're in too. So if you think the data and everything's showing it, you ask for that if they're denying.
So there are 3 people in the queue. I would almost bet that Linda did not mean to request. Linda, let me know if you really did or didn't. If you did, happy to bring you up. The other 2 people that I have are Marky and Always My Grace. So I want to give you guys an opportunity that if you did not mean to request up, to drop out of requesting up before I bring you on up to the panel, and get these other questions out. So I also want to say this because Linda said, no, I did not. I didn't think so. Tapping away. And I love you and appreciate you for it. Marky, did you mean to come up? Sometimes on TikTok, y'all, people will be tapping to like the screen and then they'll tap their way into requesting to come up on the panel and ask questions. Yeah, Jedi MRQ, Cheryl said, absolutely, you can reach out, right? Tapping mishaps. Yeah, they happen. They do happen. I'm not seeing Marky or Always My Grace responding. So
I will respond. Like if people reach out, I'll respond to some specific easy questions. But if you're looking for like full on advocacy, it would be nice if you would, pay me as an IEP advocate to do all that.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. See, these were.
It takes, people don't realize how much research goes involved to help specific things. So most of what I'm giving is kind of an overall generic, if that makes sense. That works for everybody.
Yeah, Stacy, we did. So we talked about even if there are any phone calls or notes that come home, following up in an email in writing with that communication.
Yep.
It's just incredibly important to do that, right? Yeah, right. Calm and not chaos, research and experience.
Nobody can read this, but it's one of my papers and links that says get everything in writing, and it tells you why and what you should do. But yes, any phone call, you follow up with an email and say, per our conversation.
Yep.
And you reiterate your understanding of what they said in that conversation.
Yep. 100%. So I want to say this, a couple of things. So again, a lot of these documents, Cheryl has put together a ton of free resources. Okay. And they are in my Discord, for you to have access to. My Discord is free for anyone to access. So you literally, all you have to do to get your hands on a ton of really terrific, amazing info on 504s and IEPs and how to advocate for them is to click on my link tree, which is in my profile. Okay. Then at the very top where you're going to see these different icons, there's a little, looks like a video game controller. Click that. If it gives you an issue, just copy the URL and paste it into a browser. It will take you to my Discord. You'll go step by step through a verification process. If you want to subscribe, great. If you don't have to. And then once you get into Discord, down the left-hand side are what we call channels, right? They're just like little rooms of conversation or where to find information. So there's a channel that is called IEP in my Discord. Cheryl's Google Docs are in there for you. Okay? So just letting you know that all of that is there. While you're in my Discord or while you're in my link tree, there is a plethora of information in there too about one thing that's in there that we talked a lot about this week is MMIWG, which is missing and unalived women, Indigenous women and girls. A lot of people do not realize that being unalived by someone else, because on TikTok I can't use the word, but that is the third leading cause of unaliving, right? For Indigenous women, girls between the ages of 10 and 24, which is just astounding, right? To know that it's like 84% of Indigenous women experience violence in their lifetime. More than 50% of them experience SA in their lifetime. There's a lot of information that is in there on that, on immigration, on healthcare, on maternal information, all of those things. So we do give a ton of information to you for free. As Cheryl said, if you all want actual advocacy from Cheryl, please pay her for advocacy, right? My workshops that I do are free. If you want actual like individual training for an organization and all of that, pay your girl for those things, because there's a lot of free things that are provided. Okay. So just get into Discord and you will find all of those things. Get into the link tree and it's there for you. Yes, everyone. We know that we have a new Pope. We know that he's American. Everybody's really excited about it. I don't really okay, cool. I'm not Catholic, so I'm just like, okay, whatevs. But that's great for people that are super excited about it. Apparently he's from Chicago. Cool, whatever. I might be excited if it was like a woman Pope. Like I might get excited about that, even though I'm not Catholic, but I'm just, you know what I mean? Like it's cool. So let me just say this. This recording will be on Facebook. Facebook saves lives for 30 days now before it takes them down. It is also on my YouTube, so you can go back and rewatch it. If Cheryl's good with it, I'm also going to download the audio and throw it up on the podcast as well. And Cheryl, if people want to follow you or reach out to you for paid advocacy, what is the best way for them to do that?
So I'm here on TikTok. I don't really use TikTok in this way. Well, I haven't started yet. I'm still kind of getting my feet into it and getting comfortable with doing, I don't know, I haven't done any of my own lives yet. But anyway, with my face being on a screen, I'm obviously on Facebook too. I used to, and it's still open, had an autistic IEP disability advocate page. I don't really use that because people didn't utilize it. They always reached out to me personally anyway. So you're welcome to reach out to me on Facebook. It's the same name, same face is on there. So I'm easy to find. So you can find me that way. You should be able to message me too. So those are ways you can get a hold of me. Through here and through there is fine. Yeah, I don't have like a website or anything. Most of mine's always been through word of mouth. So,
which is one of the best ways to do it, but yeah.
So
do you
want me to talk any about the accommodation modification things?
I mean, I'm good
wrapping up or what?
Well, I mean, we are good on time. Yeah, so let's do, if you guys are good with it, we will do some accommodation. You're welcome, guys. I know I sounded like, because, okay, and let me tell you why I was kind of like heading that direction, is because you are providing a ton of things for free right now. And so I wasn't going to like have you fill an entire 3-hour slot and give away absolutely everything, because I think that what you've given right now is a foundation for absolutely anybody that needs to know how to advocate for an IEP and a 504, even what the differences are between those two things. So what I will say to you is I'm okay if you don't want to, and if you want to save a little something for, maybe another one or another podcast, and I'm okay if you do. It's like literally
Yeah.
like,
it doesn't matter to me. I got everything out in front of me to remember, but there is one of the papers that are in there. This helps people who already even have IEPs and 504s. Because it lists accommodations and modifications and explains the difference between the two.
Mhm.
And it actually gives examples of some accommodations and modifications. So it might help people if they think something isn't working or whatever it is they have or isn't working. They could look at this sheet and it might give them some ideas of some things that could work. And it's broken down by testing and assessments accommodations, testings and assessments modifications, presentations, response, and it explains what those different things are, your environment and setting, organizational type things, time allocation, and behavior. Like it touches these different areas of different accommodation modifications based on those types of things.
So I will share with you one thing that you could touch on. And thank you,
what's that?
Stacy, for saying it, because it reminded me. So yesterday, folks, we started taking a look at the proposed budget from the administration. And in that proposed budget for the administration, there were some significant changes around education funding that are being proposed. Keep in mind, this is not anything that is done, it is proposed. But in that conversation, there's some talk about consolidating grants and funding, and then giving it to states to decide how to distribute, or giving it directly to parents to determine how to use for education. And so what I would love for you to do is to talk briefly about some of those proposed changes and what the impact is that people might not recognize right off the bat.
So, like Trump likes to do, his administration, is he keeps a lot of it very vague or broad. A lot of things not said in it, and a lot of things lumped together. So that in itself makes it very difficult. But it stems not just in difficult in understanding exactly where it's going to go, but also difficult that if this is how it's written out and done, difficult to enforce and to hold accountability, and to keep funding for specific needs. So the way that it's written in consolidation, it talks about in the budget it being simplified and streamlined, and those tend to be key words in making it easier for the federal government, but making it more difficult for the people implementing the programs and using the funding, specifically when the state can do pretty much move it around and spend it how they wish with the way it's written so vague.
Yes.
When you lump it all together, see, right now things are broken up into parts where this amount of funding goes this way and this is how it's supposed to be used. And it's broken down pretty decently specific in those areas. So those specific needs are getting that funding. When you lump it together and it's all in one pool, it's like you're just putting your hand in and grabbing, okay, well, these 5 kids are getting this amount of money.
Yep.
It's not for the specific needs where the funding is put. So it leaves room for abuse of the fundings too. I mean, like it's like it could be used in all these different ways. So that is one way that it could affect it. There is funding and different programs being removed altogether. Again, it lists some, but not all. There was a ton of talk about ELL, ESOL. These are students who are English language learners. These students often need IEPs too. There's also translators. So when you have students in the schools whose parents also, this is another part of it, and it links to the IEPs too, you have translators legally. If they have, IEPs, you're supposed to be providing a translator for those parents so they understand what their rights are and what's going with the students. They should be in those meetings with the kids.
Yep.
Also, those students being evaluated should be evaluated by a translator that speaks their language. And I know that might sound weird, like, oh, that's just common sense. I'm in Florida. I am in the third highest state for students who are English language learners. I believe it's California, Texas, and Florida.
Yep.
And in my district of 29,000 public school students, we've only had one translator who does the evaluations for IEPs that speaks Spanish.
Yeah, that's a problem.
So that gives you an idea.
So
It's problematic. It's already a problem prior to this. So
Yes.
part of what they're doing, though, is they're cutting the staff that works with these students in these programs, and they're cutting the funding for those programs. So it's definitely targeting these students.
yeah,
Which to me, not only is it hurting those students, what message is it giving to our students? Like they're saying they want English language. A lot of our students want to learn Spanish. We want them to be able to communicate with other people and travel. Things hold them back, you know, when they're looking in certain careers.
yeah.
We're saying this isn't a priority.
So on top of that, what I will tell you is in my link tree, there is also a group of documents called it says proposed budget docs, and the very first link there is the entire budget proposal. Here's what I will tell you: you can actually search it by keyword, so you can type in education or whatever and find it. It's not that long. You can print it out like I have if you're a paper girl like me and Cheryl, where I want to read it and highlight it and put notes to it and all of that. But also there's two articles in there from Ed Week, which is Education Week, where they give you an outline of how these proposed budget cuts, because remember, this is a proposal, has not been voted on by Congress. It's not a done thing. But it talks about what the impact can be. And so when you think about taking funding specifically that falls under IDEA, which we just talked about, is the legal contracts and all of that, and bundling it up together and just giving it to the state to disperse it and use it as they see fit, it really messes with your ability to ensure that there's accountability and transparency for this funding and the programs, and making sure that the states adhere to the federal law requirements, right? So I would really highly recommend that you get in here and read those articles, read the budget, become informed. I will tell you that just glancing over the budget, the people that I see specifically targeted, and I use that word intentionally, okay? The people that are targeted in these budget cuts are Indigenous people. When they talk about stopping construction projects on tribal lands for Indigenous students, when they talk about cutting, water services and water programs on tribal lands, those types of things. When they talk about cutting English language services for migrant children, my whole thing about that is you keep saying they need to speak English, and then you want to turn around and get rid of the program that teaches them English. It makes no sense, right? But in addition to that, another huge group of people that are being targeted by these cuts are people in rural communities. We have a ton of rural development programs that are proposed to be eliminated with this new budget that you want to look at. I don't care if you are a Republican or a Trump supporter or whatever. This is information that you need to know, because it will directly impact you if it is passed as it is written, right? The other people that are specifically targeted are LGBTQ plus people, along with, of course, the regular marginalized Black and brown folk, along with women. So those are the people that are being targeted by these proposed cuts. You can see it. It is spelled out in the proposal. So read it, become informed. I'm going to do some lives where we go over it specifically. But what I'm going to do when I do it is be able to take the proposal, what it says, look up the actual program, and we're going to get into the meat and potatoes, because this is the stuff that we have to have conversations about. Not Trump, not even RFK Jr., although sometimes they have to be talked about sometimes. But what I'm most interested in talking about are these proposed cuts, these proposed programs, these proposed studies, right? All of those things. And for those of you who all are saying that if I get my child evaluated, can that be used like by RFK and whatever? Here's what I will tell you. Any proposal for them to access your medical information is going to go through the court system. And the court system right now is the only thing that is keeping us as a country and not a dictatorship. And on that note, can I give you one piece of glorious information? Did anybody hear about this little town hall kind of meeting that Justice Roberts had last night? Okay, I'm going to share it with you all before we go. Cheryl can hang tight with me for a second, but hold on, because this is good stuff. It made my heart smile. So yeah, let me tell you, Judge Roberts issued some more information for Trump last night. Give me a second. There it is. Boop, boop, boop. It's a beautiful thing. I don't want an ad. Thank you very much. Actually, you can play the ad, but I'm keeping the volume down. Play the ad and let me get to what I want to get to. So here's the thing. I think that there are certain things that should not be, hear me when I say this, there are certain things that should not have paywalls. And I think that when they come to matters of national security and the administration, I don't think that news agencies should put paywalls or ads in front of them. I think it's just for the benefit of the public, and we deserve to have access to that information without subscribing to you for any whatever. So that's just me. I don't want to hear you talk about it. No, stop. Nope. So let me just tell y'all, when I look at news stuff, here's what I don't do. I don't listen to news people talk about it. I want to watch the person who said it or read what they said. So I clicked on the first link. It ain't the one I want. Sorry, I don't want to listen because they add too much rhetoric and supposition into it. And I don't like it. Okay, so give me 1 second. Yeah, I don't want to hear their commentary. All right, so here we go. I'm going to open just a couple of them. Oh, that's a new take on it. Okay, so here I go, opening up different, right, just the facts. Right, it's their bias. Thank you all for understanding why I say what I say. Okay, so here we go. So different headlines read differently, as you can imagine. But so here's what happened. So Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts gave remarks yesterday. And he literally was letting Trump know what was going to happen. It was a very thinly veiled swipe at Trump. Okay. So here's what he says. It was at a public event in his home area of Buffalo, New York. Right. And he said, the judiciary's role is to quote unquote decide cases, but in the course of that, check the excesses of Congress or the executive. He noted, quote, in our Constitution, the judiciary, listen to these words, is a co-equal. The judiciary is a co-equal branch of government, separate from the others, with the authority to interpret the Constitution as law and strike down, obviously, acts of Congress or acts of the president. So things that jump out to me in that quote, because that's the quote that I read this morning that I wanted you all to hear. He said, first, the judiciary is co-equal branch. So for those of you all, I actually read comments from people yesterday that were saying, I don't know who the Supreme Court thinks they are to tell Trump what to do. Do they not know separation of state? And I was like, yeah. Do you not understand
scary.
Yeah. Do you not understand the branches of government and how they work? So people think somehow the judiciary branch is lower than the executive branch, and it's not. They are co-equal branches, right? And so the co-equal branch of government, That's the first part that makes me go, ooh, he's telling you right now, buddy, you're not any higher on the totem pole than I am, right? And then he goes on to say, when he says, with the authority to interpret the Constitution as law and strike down, and here's my favorite word, obviously. That's his word, y'all. That's not my word. He said, and strike down, obviously, acts of Congress or acts of the president. He also cautioned, quote unquote, that innovation doesn't work if the judiciary is not independent. Quote, its job is to obviously decide cases, but in the course of that, check the excesses of Congress or the executive, and that does require a degree of independence. Yeah, so I was quite happy at that because this is not the first time that Judge Roberts has said, don't fuck with judges. This is not the first time. And I keep saying to people that I don't think that Trump gets it, or that maybe those people in the Heritage Foundation get it. Those judges, to be quite frank, and I'm just going to be frank because that's all I know how to be, right? I think that conservative court is absolutely okay with some sexism and racism, right? I think they're fine with that.
It's everywhere.
Yep. I think the majority of the people on that bench are fine with that. And I think where the buck will stop is with the Constitution and a dictatorship. The same way that Mike Pence was fine with every damn thing except overthrowing the government, right? That's the same way that I look at this with Justice Roberts. It's the same way with Brian Kemp, right? Brad Raffensperger said, look, we can do a whole lot, but this ain't it, right? Same thing with Randy Bowers, right? So I just think that, it is right. It's a bridge too far, Veronica. And so it does give us hope. It does tell us, I think, where the line is going to be. I don't think that we should forget that a lot of damage can be done between here and that line. And so that is where it's up to us to do our due diligence and having these types of conversations. Y'all, let me tell you, if you sit down with the people in your community and you share what you've learned with me and Cheryl, that's an opening of a very vital conversation where you can bridge the gap between you and somebody that's traditionally always voted Republican. When you can take this proposed budget and point out how it negatively impacts their children, right? And the conversation is very simple. We now understand that, the people who thought, oh, well, he won't do it to us. We now know that he will do it to absolutely anybody. And people need to understand that. But these are the things that open the door for serious conversation that can create connection, so that we can work together to get us back on track. Virginia, can I please remind you? Oh, and give you a note of celebration because I was off live yesterday when I got the final numbers, the final count. You can see my face. I'm smiling very big. When I went to the Virginia Democratic Rural Caucus just a week and a half ago, there were 100 races in Virginia this year, and there were 96 Democratic candidates. Guess what? In the Commonwealth of Virginia, there is not a single election going uncontested in Virginia. Southwest Virginia, there is a candidate against Terry Kilgore this year. There is a candidate that opposes every Republican in the Commonwealth of Virginia. This year, you all are electing your governor, right? You are electing, so you have 3 House seats. You have 3 statewide seats. Your governor, your lieutenant governor, and your attorney general. And then you have a bunch of other seats in the Commonwealth. So there are 100 seats available in Virginia, and every single race is contested. And that, folks, is how you do it. That's how you damn do it. So Virginia and New Jersey have elections this year. So we got to be about the business of doing everything possible. I will tell you now, I already reached out to my folks and said, in Virginia, and said, let me know how I can help. And they said, let us get through. I think there's some caucuses and stuff that they have to go through and some training. And when that's done, they were like, we are definitely reaching out. So I'm excited about that. On that same note, last note, kind of sort of last note, last thing, kind of sort of is a week from yesterday. So May the 14th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I am doing a free workshop. The workshop is Good Trouble. What does good trouble mean? It means how to have town halls, how to organize, how to do things like infographics and yard signs and strategic ways of having different conversations and what topics to cover and things to remember when you're having conversation and knocking doors and all the things. So that is May the 14th. It is free. You get there by going to my link tree. The very first link that is there is to RSVP for that. I will tell you, I put up that link 48 hours ago and almost half the spots are gone. So there's 100 people that are available. And when I checked this morning, I want to say it was like 57 or 58 spots left. So just saying, if you want to be there, be about the business and RSVP now. Okay. What, baby? Okay, I'm coming. All right.
Some more chips.
You want some more chips? Okay, well, let's get some lunch, okay?
Okay.
Okay. You've been very good today, Sissy. You've been really good. Okay. Yeah. You want to what? Look, tell them,
Can
say
I
hi.
one way we've already changed one of the things happening?
Yes.
So, the lawsuit was against the 504 Rehabilitation Act that they had brought up in regards. They said it was for
Look at my head.
removing the section in the 504 that covers for gender dysphoria, which we know that that's not what was created, because the lawsuit actually had in there to abolish the 504 Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act altogether, which means that there would be no laws for the 504 plans.
Yes.
So everybody, while you can't get everybody to go after them for the gender dysphoria part, unfortunately, they did go after them about the abolishing the Section 504.
Absolutely.
So that lawsuit was dropped due to that.
Yes.
So oftentimes, the parts of government, the different sections, don't always know how things work. They just kind of run with stuff. Sometimes they know exactly what they're doing. Sometimes they don't. So us having these conversations with them, because some of them do care, and if they understand how it is going to affect people, it does make them often back off or speak up against it
100%.
to make it stop. So it goes with this proposal too. When we're talking about these areas, the specific people that Danny was mentioning that it goes after is true. And there's also several sections in there where it does for disability education.
Yes.
Because there are areas where they are removing programs. They're saying that they're streamlining them. But then if you look at how much they're removing in the budget for those programs, it's literally removing the program.
So the hint is, when you go to read this budget, when you see words that say streamline, consolidate, those types of words, that is code for we're taking away your money or we're cutting shit out. Oh, look at him.
This is
beautiful.
He's like, what you doing, Mom?
Yeah, he's beautiful.
And also relic, when they mention relics of a program, that's code for we're getting rid of this program. And they're not relics. They are literally in use. People are using them.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what percentage of people are using them. Obviously, people with disabilities getting supports are on the lower end of percentage of people, but they're people. They need these.
Absolutely.
So that's in there too. I keep seeing relics of a program and outdated and these programs are still being used. And those are the ones they're talking about that have to do with helping students getting into higher education that have disabilities.
Yes. Yes. True story. So I forgot this whole thing was about disabilities and I forgot to put that in the group, but no, yes, that is definitely one where things are. So remember that when we are having conversations with people, it's about listening for the opportunity to create connection. Okay. And so you might not be able to connect about getting rid of the part about gender dysphoria because there are people that are homophobic and transphobic. And so you don't even want to touch on that. But what you can say is this will impact your child's 504, your ability for your child to get accommodations, your ability for your child to get, the resources and the things that they need to be successful in school, right? So y'all know my big area is healthcare. I would say Cheryl's big area is education. Those two together are ridiculously powerful when it comes to being areas of opportunity for us to create engagement and connection, and creating this type of systems that truly take care of people. It's not about making it a Democratic win, a Republican win, an independent win, and an affiliated win, a blah, 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 blah win. It's about making systems that truly support the people. It's really about that, folks. It's about our children. It's about our elderly folks. It's about our parents. It's about each other. So that's what we've got to focus on. So let me just say this. Cheryl, I am ridiculously grateful to you all the time when you come in here. She's one of the few people that if she hears me say something that's not quite right, she'll pop on up and say, so the reason we say this is da 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 da. And I'm always like, love that, appreciate it. And that's the thing. I don't know everything about all the things, right? And none of us do. None of us do, folks. So here's what I want you to say. Take things as an opportunity to grow. And that's all they are. I tell you, with my friend Jamie, this is a few years ago, like 6 or 7 years ago, I was still saying their lifestyle, right? Talking about LGBTQ people. And I remember I said something about, even if you don't agree with someone's lifestyle. And she got with me and she said, hey, listen, she said, you used a word today that used to be the word that was appropriate. She said, I know you didn't mean anything by it, but you said lifestyle. She said, and listen, going to the gym is a lifestyle. Going hiking is a lifestyle, right? Being a vegetarian is a lifestyle, right? Being LGBTQ plus is just a life. It's just who I am. And she only had to tell me that one time, and my ass has never said lifestyle again. But it's just knowing that, right? The first time I worked with a couple of people whose pronouns were they, them, if I messed up and said, he, and like one time I did, and I was like, oh my God, Blake, I am so sorry. I know that you are they. And they said to me, Danny, I know you're not used to saying it, and I know you don't mean harm, right? So I don't take any offense to it, but it's just about acknowledging that's a new thing for me in this environment because I'm used to looking and just giving it from there, right? So all the things, I appreciate Cheryl's ability to come up and say, hey, so Danny, I heard you say this, and I wanted to talk to you about this, and da-da-da-da-da, and we say it this way, and we say it that, and I love that, right? Because there's not a single person, in my opinion, above reproach that can't learn, that can't be taught. We are not all experts in every single thing. And so it is up to us to share what we know with each other at all times, and to not take it personal, to not be offended by it, but to say, you know what? I am so lucky to have people in my life who care enough to share their knowledge with me, to include me, to help me grow, to get where I want to be, right? Because that is a blessing, folks. That is a really incredible thing to have. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm so grateful for the community that we've created on social media, on TikTok and Facebook, and YouTube is a new thing that I just started doing. I love y'all over there too. And so just make sure that you are following across the boards, right? And let me say this, please join the Discord. And there's an email, there's a link in my link tree to join my email list, because God forbid social media ever goes away. We all need to stay connected because we got work to do. This is our country. This is our planet. This is our world. And we've got to make sure that we make the most of it, and that it is something that our children can lead incredible lives in. I think about that a lot. So, Cheryl, I appreciate you in so many ways. You have no idea. I really do. Thank you for sharing.
I appreciate you too.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
And you actually helped because you're giving me your platform to be able to share with people and reach more people. I haven't created this for myself yet, which I really probably should do. People keep telling me to do it based on the stuff that I do. But you opening your space when you've already got this, people listening, you're creating an atmosphere to bring in knowledge from other areas, which is, it's just amazing. And
That's the
it's
goal,
needed.
right?
We are all connected. All these things intersect.
They
and
do.
come together and overlap. Like I tell everybody, you can't be you and do you without everybody else in the world.
No,
Like,
it's all
are
connected
a part of
together.
it.
So for
Yeah.
those of y'all who don't know, on Facebook and YouTube, on our TikTok community, you have Cheryl, who is a very, what I would say, an expert in her field of IEP and 504 advocacy. We have Sunny, who is an expert in all things VA related. We have a variety of people that are doing incredible work. We have Rolo, who is an immigration attorney, who gives a ton of information around immigration and immigration law and, actually what can or can't happen and what is real and what's not real and all of those things. And so I'm grateful that we all get a chance to share this information with as many people as will listen, right? Because that is how we become better, right? Yep, we got Attorney D. There's like a lot of different folks that are in this community. Oh my gosh, Phantom is my guy because Phantom does all of the tech stuff in our community, absolutely everything. Sammy J is a realtor in our community. We have just like so many different people that have their avenues, and that's what makes it a successful community. And nobody's trying to outshine anybody, and nobody's trying to do whatever, because here's what we know is that when we all do it together, yep, we got HR in here. Everybody's dropping in the comments now, like, yep, I'm HR, I'm this, I'm that, and we do. And that's what makes it, yep, and we have T. Is the gentleman who is a principal on the panel? No, yeah. Well, it depends on which one you're talking about. Oh, no, you're talking about the real good one. So listen, we have two different educators. One is a principal and one is a retired PE teacher. The principal knows what the hell he's talking about and is open to new things. PE guy, yeah, nah, not at all. So, yep, I mentioned Sunny already, Stacey D. I mentioned Sunny already. So, so Cheryl, I appreciate you for sharing everything. For those of you all who listened, if you found this information beneficial and you know people who need to know it, you need to have them watch the replays on Facebook, on YouTube, and I'm going to download the audio and throw this sucker up on the podcast. Yeah, Catsman Dude, no worries. It is on Facebook and YouTube. You can watch the whole thing again. She said, I'm so sad I missed the whole live. Work gets in the way of life.
And the documents are on Discord under IEP.
So
I also put some links in the chat, and the sub Discord, on a bunch of different links on disability language.
Mm-hmm.
So, we talked about that some.
Yep.
And it's for a variety of different disabilities. So it talks about that and using the word disability, but also specific to certain disabilities. But the key word here, you always respect the individual person and what they want.
Yes.
But disability, the languages are always evolving. That's how we learn. We
Yep.
grow with what helps everyone.
Yep.
So it changes having to do with people's response to us and nature in the world.
Yep.
So that's why it evolves and changes. So we've got to be prepared for evolving with it.
Yep. So for those of you guys who are asking, I saw someone ask in the comments, I am the same on TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. I am the Danny Cook. I'm also the Danny Cook on Substack and on Blue Sky as well. The podcast is the Danny Cook Show. So that's how you find me. I'm not hard. Just know my damn name and you'll get there. So I'm going to wrap it up. It's 2:00. It's almost time for the other two grands to come home. Last night, let me just tell y'all, I said I planned to come back last night and I don't know what I did. I tweaked my back and could not move. So y'all did not see me on social media last night, nor did I even put anything in Discord. I just was like, oh dear God, and I took medicine and laid down. But I will be back tonight because we have work to do, and I have a lot of political stuff that we didn't get to cover today that we will. Jenna Fred wants me to repeat what I said about motivation and inspiration yesterday. So here's the thing. Motivation comes from an external factor. You see somebody, or you're going to have your class reunion, so you're motivated to lose 15 pounds, right? Your husband's treating you really good, whatever. So you're motivated to act right? You lose that motivation. When that motivating factor leaves, then all of a sudden you don't have anything pushing you to do that thing. That is the difference between motivation and inspiration. Okay. Inspiration is when somebody they use their fire to relight the kindling sitting inside of you. And now it's burning for you. It is inside of you and nobody can put it out. When you are inspired, it will get you up. It will keep you coming back. I don't know if you all have ever done work where you're like, fuck this shit, I ain't doing this no more. And 30 minutes later, you're like, I can't believe they did, right? So listen, that's inspiration keeps you from quitting. Inspiration keeps you going. Inspiration is what will do the thing. So appreciate you, Tommy, for subscribing. So listen, this is the difference. We have to be inspired, not attached to the outcomes, and doing the work because it's who we want to be. I want to be somebody that's willing to do the work, even for people that don't like me, even for people that I don't damn like. Because listen, I don't like all of y'all. Real talk. I'm talking mostly, y'all know who I'm talking to.
I was sitting here a minute. I was just mulling it over my head before you caught what you said. I'm like,
because so here's the thing, right? I'm just being real. I just keep it 100% real. There are people back home that I love, and there are people that I don't like. And I still will advocate for you every time, hands down, because it's who I want to be. It has nothing to do with you. I don't have to like you to help you. I don't have to like you to do something for you, for your children, for whatever. I don't have to. And here's the thing. If you are unclear, if you go, gosh, I wonder if Danny likes me, that means I either do like you or I don't even know enough about you to like or dislike you. That's what that means. People, don't scream. Because people that I don't like, no, I don't like them. There's no guesswork. So that's it. So you get it, right?
I help parents who voted for this stuff, and I make sure when I'm helping them to let them know, by the way,
yes,
you voted for this.
Yeah, by the way, when I'm helping you fight, yeah, everyone in the chat is at me. No, they know it's not. Listen, I'm just saying. So I appreciate everyone very, very much. Thank you all for gifting Cheryl over in TikTok world.
Thank you.
I appreciate you all for doing that and giving her big love because she definitely deserves it. Terry Bohr said, I aspire to that level of transparency myself. Listen, why not? Because what you going to do when Mr. Barrios, wait, is it me? Oh, no, it's not you. I promise you, the people that it is, they know. I ain't even got to say nothing. Appreciate you, Kat, for subscribing. We got business to do. I will be back at 9:00 p.m. tonight, Eastern Standard Time on TikTok. Not on Facebook and YouTube, but on TikTok. So I appreciate you all very much. Love you, Cheryl. Mean it. And I will see you.